Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Is it gone? Oh, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Love Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Love Sunday, Monday. Hit it. Welcome to the Sabby and Jaybe show. It is live at 5. I am James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you here on Revolutionary Blackout Network. I am one of your hosts, James Fauntleroy. Sabby Sabs, you were fired last stream. Good to see you. I know you're still fired up.
What's going on, Jaybe?
Oh my goodness. It is a great show for all. It's going to be a great conversation. Just to let you guys know, the Sabby and Jaybe show is every single Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you guys would like to, you guys can also go to revolutionaryblackout.substack.com. That gives you guys the email notifications whenever we go live or upload any clips at all. So thank you very much for that. Also, if you guys have not, you guys can become patrons on Patreon. It is linked in the down in the ticker, as well as a pin in the chat as well. As per usual, whenever we have guests, we like to get to them right away. A blanket hello to every single person that's joining here. What are we talking about today? We are talking about reparations for ADOS. ADOS is an acronym for American Descendants of Slaves. How does this repair America? So we're going to be getting into that right now. We have Jamin Mason, Khalif Mitchell, Brother Ali, and Gregg Marcel Dixon joining us all here today. Good to see you all, gentlemen.
Great to be here.
Yeah, peace and blessings. Great to be here, Brother Jay and Sister Sabs, Brother Marcel, Brother Ali, Brother Jamin. It's a blessing. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you to everybody. I'm glad to be here with you.
Thank you all for having me. Happy to be here.
So one of the things that we wanted to get into was first, now people like myself and Sabby, we have talked about the necessity for reparations and why it is necessary, not just here on RBN, but we talked about it in our respective channels. My question to all of you, if you guys can give us just a 30-second soundbite of why reparations is so deeply important and helpful for America. If you can just give us that in a 30-second soundbite, we can. I would like to get your answer for that, just to whet people's appetite. I want to start off with Brother Ali, since it's my first time meeting you. Can you give me that right quick?
Well, thank you. Absolutely. One of the first things that comes to mind is the wealth gap. And what we've identified at the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen and Be the Power, along with the works of Dr. Darity and others, is that the wealth gap is an actual part of the legacy of slavery, right? And so we can trace this back to the Port Royal experiment, the failed Port Royal experiment. We can trace it back to the 40-acre land plots that were some were given and then taken back, the reneging upon the promises, the failed Reconstruction, the overthrowing of Reconstruction. So basically the wealth gap is one of the most prominent things that we can look at and see right in front of our faces that is rooted back into the Reconstruction era and the failed promises of the United States government.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to move on to Khalif next.
Yes, reparations is necessary first and foremost because it's part of American history. Back during the Civil War, the freedmen who was once classified as American chattel slaves have fought alongside those abolitionists for the Union Army. And one of the repayments for that during the wartime was to go ahead and give us what we commonly call 40 acres and a mule. My great grandmother herself, while growing up, was having conversations about still being older, 40 acres and a mule, which is why I'm able to go ahead and now produce that same type of passion within myself to go ahead and make sure that which is old is actually brought back. So when we're talking about reparations in America, it's actually a debt owed and not a favor given out. It's not a program. It's not an all-inclusive, because those bodies that were dying alongside those abolitionists were not all-inclusive. They were absolutely those people who were known as American Negroes through chattel slavery, and those people who were bought and sold from that market to become then U.S. soldiers, to become then Americans. So to be able to not only give us our restitution, which is not merely just a monetary form, but the purpose of our restitution is to be made whole. And I believe the foundation of reparations starts and begins with Special Field Orders 15, commonly known as 40 acres and a mule. And if my great grandmother said she's owed that, then as a descendant of her, it's my duty to go and get that. So that's good for America. It's American history. It's American policy. And I think it also does good for America's spiritual sense, being one nation under God, to rectify her sins and make sure the balances are not finding her wanting.
Got it. Okay, next to Jamin.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna, Brother Ali and Brother Khalif did it justice, so I'm just gonna say my original opening spiel: peace, power, and American Negro reparations, specifically for the Black American Negro freedmen who built this country with slave labor per the land's promise in Special Field Orders 15, January 16th, 1865. I am here to unite our people, push us forward, and get the must-do mandatory repair that we've been owed for far too long. We can all be repaired, all people, but let's do this organically, and let's do this chronologically, and that puts us up next for our repair. I'll yield. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Gregg Marcel Dixon, just as a let people know that you're also running against James Clyburn in South Carolina. So you also have a very powerful reparations policy on your in your platform as well. So I just want to let people know that before you get started. So just people know that he is running as an independent. I'm sorry, I forget. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name of the party that you're running with, but it is a third party that you are running with in South Carolina.
Yes, I'm running with the United Citizens Party of South Carolina, a third party that was founded in part to help advance the cause of reparations for Black Americans who are descendants of the emancipated, who have the federal status of freedmen, like from the Freedmen's Bureau that was established by the federal government. And just to speak to the cause about why we are due reparations, it's because we cannot have a government that has a double standard when it comes to justice. If this federal government has acknowledged that they've done wrong to Native American tribes, until this day, they are paying settlements, aka reparations, to these Native American tribes and their descendants. If they acknowledge they did wrong to the intern Japanese, and they are paying reparations to the intern Japanese and their descendants, and they've done it for Iranian hostages, for Guamanians, for the downwinders, I can go on, then they cannot then turn around and say to freedmen who they enslaved for almost 260 years and who they terrorized for almost 100 additional years during the era of Jim Crow, that they do not owe us. It's either justice for all or it's justice for none. And I don't think any of us wants to live in a nation where there's justice for none. But until we do reparations for the freedmen, that is exactly what we have right now. And it really puts all of us in danger. Because if they do it to us, it's only a matter of time before they do it to others.
Yeah. And now, my sister Sabrina, I would love to get your answer as well.
So it's interesting. I was just talking about this last night too. So it's interesting. I choose to usually focus on this from the housing and community aspect, how there has been, I can show this a little bit later, but how there has been land taken from Black Americans. You have to ask yourself, like, what happened to those communities? There's been no repair there. And that is another right that hasn't been wrong. We just saw what happened with the Tulsa massacre claim that was dismissed by Oklahoma judge. That is a situation where there are I think it's just two survivors now that are still present, and the judge still ruled not to give them reparations. So it's very clear that it is just against American descendants of slavery that they don't want to issue this repair for, because they've had no problem doing it for other groups.
Yeah. So thank you so very much for that. So you guys had set the tone, set the stage for exactly in just a very short period of time why reparations is so important. I just want to get more nuanced and deeper into this. And one of the things that I wanted to ask was, a lot of times people will say, you guys aren't slaves right now. We do not own slaves. White people in this nation will say, we have not owned slaves. Therefore, why is it that we have to pay for what our ancestors, and some of us, our ancestors didn't come here until Ellis Island in the early 1920s. Why is it that we have to pay for the sins of white people in the past? I want to start off, and we'll go back in reverse. We'll start off with Gregg to set this off first.
Well, I would ask those white people, why are they playing the race card? Why are they playing the race card? No one brought up race. Reparations is a debt owed to us by the federal government. When the intern Japanese were paid, in the case some of them were dead, it went to their children. That came from the federal government. It didn't come from some nameless white person walking down the street. When the Native Americans till this day are paid their reparations, like right now, that doesn't come from some nameless white person walking down the street. That comes from the federal government. When the Ukrainians are getting their next $100 billion, the Israelis are getting the next hundreds of billions of dollars. Corporations are getting their $1 trillion bailouts. The Pentagon just almost received a $1 trillion budget. That doesn't come from some nameless white person walking down the street. That comes from the federal government. So I will ask those white people to please stop playing the race card. But since they want to bring up race and say, well, hey, I'm an Ellis Islander, my people didn't come into the 1920, I would say to them, let's assume that the reparations that would come from them personally, they would contribute to it, because people swear their taxes sponsor federal spending. Anyone who knows how the spending works on the federal level know that's not the case. That's something we may get into later on, so I'm not going to go there right now. Think about all the tax dollars and all of the spending that freedmen have done in this nation, from which we never benefited. During almost 260 years of enslavement, we generated massive wealth. The first source of wealth in this nation was rice, grown by freedmen down here where I am in South Carolina. Then you had cotton, then you had sugar, then you had tobacco, then you had coffee, then you had the railroads, then you had the cities we cleared the fields to build, and the foundations we built, the insurance companies built in our body, the shipbuilding industry, the iron, blacksmithing industry. I can go on. We never benefited from any of that wealth. How about all the wars we fought in, and about all the industries and inventions we've done from which we never were able to benefit ourselves? If you come to a nation, you inherit the debt that nation owes as well. And if you have a problem with that, then you should not have come to this nation.
Of course. Jamin?
Yeah. Well said, Comrade Marcel. Definitely. And what I would say was, are we out of slavery? Did that ever really happen? I would say, short and concise, that I believe ever since Andrew Johnson took the reins and took over after Abraham Lincoln died, we got placed right back into slavery. It just wasn't called slavery. They called it Jim Crow. They've called it redlining. They've called it everything Marcel just read off. It is constant oppression by our federal government in these United States of America that has kept our people under the boot whether our people want to see it that way or not. The reality is, it's that way. I don't believe we ever got out of slavery. They just named it different. CRT, this, that, whatever acronyms they put to this is the acronyms that our people are fighting. Well, yeah. Let me just leave it right there. I don't think we ever got out of slavery. And all you. Thank you.
True. Khalif, let's go to you.
Yes, I mean, one of the main things that I will say about, the purposes of why reparations and where America is at this moment, I'm thinking that, to be honest, what Brother Jamin just said about our position and the not leaving slavery, I believe once Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, that it kind of relegated us between the status of in between American and in between slave. And it was kind of almost like it was when we had the status of contraband from when we became the property from the war. And it almost puts us in this paradigm to where we're sitting back and saying that we're Americans and all of the rights that are afforded to every other American should be afforded to us, especially the right to redress our government, which is one of the founding principles
Yeah.
of America. But to not be able to have that right also gives credence to my point that I just made about us not having the full benefit of that American status to be able to have that redress, like the Japanese, like the Jewish people. I believe Governor Kathy Hochul just recently, within the earlier parts of this year, issued out 132 million. I'm not precisely on that number, but it was in 130 millions or 100 millions to the Holocaust survivors and their descendants. And she made it very imperative to put that their descendants were to be paid. So if the descendants of the Jewish people can be paid, if the descendants of the Japanese internment camps can be paid, then the descendants of the American Negro can be paid, especially understanding the historical context that the American Negro has with America, being that property piece that transferred from the British colonies into the America that we call America today, and then not having such freedom until the wonderful date of the brother just mentioned in January of 1865, 1863. So one of the things that we even celebrate now is Juneteenth, about how in 1865, 2 years after we were supposed to be freed from the Emancipation Proclamation within the Confederate States, we still had vast of our people operating free labor on plantations when we were supposed to be Americans via Special Field Order 15. So just understanding the contracts that we have with the government and understanding how those play out in today's sense, I don't look at Special Field Orders 15 no different than the Choctaw or the Cherokee or the Chippewa look at their contracts with their ancestors with the government, and I say and I say and demand that should those contracts and agreements be honored, those same contracts and agreements, no matter what they may look like, no matter what lands they may be on, no matter what type of details may be entwined in them, they have to be met and be fulfilled to their fullest obligation or to as best as partially proper in this day and age. So I do understand that no people in America today would have been those people who have issued the whip to our people. And I do recognize as well that my great grandmother was not her great grandmother, but I do recognize that my great grandmother did not forget that which was owed to her great grandmother, just like I'm not going to forget what was owed to her.
Yeah. Brother Ali.
Yeah, I would just say to the question, I think Marcel pretty much answered it. But what I would say in terms of the question, uh, white people saying that, hey, we weren't slaves, a lot of them coming here after the turn of the century through Ellis Island, etc. It's like brother said, it's the government can pay for anything that they want to pay for. Same thing that
Yeah.
they did with the Civil Liberties Act of the 1980s with the Japanese Americans and the Aleutians. They can do that as well in this particular instance. As a matter of fact, during COVID, there were a number of articles that spoke about how money was created out of thin air to to
Yeah.
to infuse into the economy to stimulate the economy. You had the stimulus checks, you had the unemployment, you had the extra unemployment benefits, that the extra $600 unemployment benefits that were being paid. None of this came out of people's tax dollars. This is money that the federal government had and could spend. Even afterwards, they had some extra money that the president was able to use and reappropriate for that particular purpose. And so the bottom line is, it's not about people's tax dollars. The United States government can afford anything that it wants to afford. And we see that on a consistent basis when you look at foreign aid in the billions and billions of dollars that go out every single year. They don't need our tax dollars for that. The United States is a currency creator. They can create it. So the money that's in circulation came from the government in the first place. They don't need our tax dollars to pay for anything. And so that's what I would say to, those white people. And at the same time, the other thing I would say, especially to those who come after the Civil War, many of them do. I propose that most people in the United States today calling themselves white are people who came after the Civil War, to be honest with you, in my opinion. That white population group grows because they adopt more and more people over time. But the fact of the matter is, the United States has debt. You don't get to pick and choose which part of the national debt you're going to pay. So that's not how that works, and I'm sorry they feel some kind of way about it, but none of us get to pick and choose which part of the nation's debt we want our tax dollars to go to. And as a matter, I've had these kinds of conversations with white supremacists, I'll call them that, on Twitter, who will say all kinds of negative things about reparations and over my dead body, all of this kind of stuff, implying that, in order to get money from them, you're going to have to come through them and they're going to shoot you, right? This is the implication. But the fact of the matter is, nobody's asking them for anything. And when it comes down to other portions of the debt, they don't question it. Even when you think about it, Islamic states that are supposed to be the enemy of the United States, all of the billions of dollars that go to Islamic states, white people don't question that the way that they question money coming to actual citizens of the United States in the form of the American freedmen. So I would just say that's their problem. They have to get over it. And if they're too ignorant to understand, that's also their problem.
Well, I mean, when it comes to the white supremacists, I mean, when they're talking about over my dead body, I say, okay. I said, we ain't trying to get money from your broke ass anyway. Basically, like, what? Like, you ain't got nothing. Like, come on. Anyway, Sabs, please go ahead. I know you're itching for this one.
Oh my God, that one drives me crazy. Well, the thing is, like, it's not just about slavery. Reparations isn't just about slavery. It's about things that also happen after slavery. Right. Yeah. So it's not just that. I mean, we're talking about redlining. We're talking about the crime. I include the crime bill in this too. Redlining, the crime bill. I mean, the war on drugs. Like, I consider all of that to be a part of it. But then also, when they say that not over my dead body, do they have that same type of statement with the money that goes to Israel? Do they have that statement? The fact that everyone in Israel has health care? Everyone in Israel can go to college in Israel for free. That's money going out the door to other people. So you see what I mean? This is why that statement to me is so stupid. It doesn't make any sense. So there's that, like, they say like they weren't a slave, or their parents weren't, like, or they weren't, didn't own any slaves or whatever, or their family members didn't own any slaves. Your family members probably didn't participate in the Holocaust either, but you still got money going there. So that, to me, that didn't make any sense.
Well, and just to add to your point, a lot of white people will go, well, I didn't own any slaves. And I'm like, yes, but you still benefited from the system that other white people have created. You're still benefiting from it.
Not just other white people, but our people. The work that our people did to build this economy, these people are coming over here and leeching off of the resources that was put in place by the work that our ancestors did in this country. So yeah, they owe a debt of gratitude in a lot of different ways.
And may I say something? I'm sorry. I just want to say, Sabby, I made that same point. Now, whether we agree with this particular issue or not, but I look at how America, and it's true, is spending throughout the years trillions of dollars caring for people in the country legally. But the corporations, during the Obama administration alone, he spent $29 trillion to bail out the banks. Trump spent trillions of dollars for corporate bailouts. I say to these people, and even though everyone talks about inflation, which inflation is an issue, but the main cause of inflation has been shown to be corporate greed. So I always ask these so-called patriots, where are you? Where's this over my dead body mentality when the country is literally spending trillions of dollars on things that do not benefit Americans at all? It's only when it comes to honoring the debt of the freedmen that they all of a sudden say, not over my dead body. And yet, there's hypocrisy on that side, the far right side. They want us to say that we are sympathizing with Donald Trump because now he's been a quote-unquote victim of the criminal injustice system. So they want to use our pain when it's convenient. But when we bring up all the other injustices we've suffered, all of a sudden they don't want to hear that. So they acknowledge now one area of our pain, the criminal injustice system. But when we talk about Jim Crow, look, my great-grandmother, who died in 101 in 2015, was raised by a man who was enslaved. My family has had land stolen. I can go on about the way government-sanctioned anti-Black American hate has impacted me. So they can't pick and choose what they want to acknowledge our pain by all of a sudden realize that there is a criminal injustice system like we've been saying. But when we talk about all the other injustices, just pull yourselves up by your bootstraps. And to your point, Sabby, the Holocaust, my great-grandfather is still alive. He just turned 100 back in April. He's a World War II veteran. He helped to stop Hitler in the Holocaust. The first thing America did was reparations for the Holocaust survivors. They made the Germans give back any property they had confiscated from the Jews. And we know that there would be no Israel without the UK and without the United States of America. And Israel gets more money from us than any other foreign nation. Now, think about it. You still have freedmen, World War II veterans who are alive that are seeing people that they helped save get reparations while at the same time being told they do not deserve it. And I'm not saying America should not have done reparations or should not have been helped to initiate reparations for Holocaust survivors. We're doing the programs for Holocaust, the descendants of Holocaust survivors as well. We should repair any wrong we've done. But it is irrefutable that the biggest wrong that this federal government has done is chattel slavery and all the horrors that happened during Jim Crow. From land theft, which is 15 million acres of land stolen, racial massacres, the Black Wall Street in Tulsa alone, they said, will be worth $69 million. And that will be in today's value. And that was just a few blocks. There was Black Wall Streets all throughout this nation. Exclusion from the Homestead Act that gave $10 trillion worth of land to white Americans. That's the third one. Exclusion from the GI Bill that helped to build the massive white middle class. I can go on with all the stuff the federal government did. So people like to play this game. Well, the federal government didn't own any slaves. Yes, they did. They contracted many slaves to help build things like the White House. But not only that, anytime our constitutional rights are violated, it is the responsibility of the federal government to intervene. They sat back and allowed our constitutional rights to be violated, and they are responsible.
I want to show something really quick, JB, about the housing thing. I'm just going to share this really quick. This was something else I talked about last night, because I know a lot of times we mention Black Wall Streets because there was more than one Black Wall Street. But I want to show people this too about Levittown, because I feel like this is one I think a lot of people don't know about. Levittown, New York, which still exists, by the way, unlike Seneca Village, right? I want to read this. This was Levittown's restrictive racial covenant. The tenant agrees not to permit the premises to be used or occupied by any person other than members of the Caucasian race. This was after slavery. So this was a town that it was exclusively white. So I don't know if anybody has ever been to Levittown, New York. Like, they've tried to change this over the years and make it more diverse or whatever. But this is a stain on the history of Levittown, New York. Then it goes on to say, but the employment and maintenance of other than Caucasian domestic servants shall be permitted. So what they were saying is that, you could work there, but you were like, Black people were not allowed to live there. How was that even legal? So you see, and that took years to repair. And then the FDR New Deal and redlining. So this is why I get upset when people say that they're an FDR Democrat or they want an FDR New Deal Democrat. They leave out what happened under the New Deal when it comes to Black people. It says 2 of the programs focusing on increasing home ownership Number one, ensuring home loans, and number two, financially supporting the development of new suburban neighborhoods. Those home loans issued through the Federal Housing Act were generally only given to white home buyers, thus resulting in redlining. So everyone needs to understand that's where that comes from. So you can't just applaud someone just because you're like, oh, well, they did these programs for people. Yes, but the New Deal programs, when it comes to Black people, there were certain things that didn't even help Black people, or they didn't apply to the Black community. And then this part here, this is another thing that needs to be repaired. Communities with significant African-American populations were included in area code coded in red for high risk. These maps inspired the term redlining, describing a policy of refusing to make federally insured mortgages in such high areas. Thus, the banks were not willing to give loans to Black people. So when white people left the cities and moved into the suburbs under this New Deal, you have to remember Black families were kept out. That needs to be repaired.
Yeah.
Can I
and
add
just
real quick? Just to the point that she was making, as a story about my parents, right? It's very interesting because it's going to add some nuance to the Black part of it. My parents went to a bank that they were banking with for many years to get a home loan. They were denied the home loan, but they said that there were some Black Africans in there. Those Black Africans were being treated more like civilized. They were being treated properly, and they got what it is that they came in there looking for. So it's very interesting. The Black part of it is like, we know that there's an anti-Black sentiment, but how far does that extend, and what is it really based on? Because that happened to my parents. We often talk about a story where Muhammad Ali, in his hometown of Louisville, Kentucky, went into a diner and couldn't be served in that diner. But he said that there were some Africans in that diner who were blue-black, is the way he described it. So dark, they were blue-black. And they were treated fairly. They were treated like human beings, whereas this man who was a citizen of the United States, born and raised here, was mistreated. A lighter-skinned man at that than those Africans. So we got to sometimes add a little bit of nuance to the Black thing, because it's, to me, from my study, it's more than just about Blackness. It's about the fact that these people in this country view a certain portion of this country as their property that they never really wanted to let go of, and that somehow they got away from them and they got these rights of citizenship, they claim in civil rights and all of these things, and it angered them. It's almost the same as when you think about the propaganda that came out about Negro rule when the Blacks were going into government during the time of Reconstruction, etc. Right? And so I think a big part of what we're looking at is the fact that our particular group, they view as their property that got away. Not the Africans, not the Caribbeans, but us in particular. So I don't know if it's necessarily anti-Blackness as much as it is just about us in particular. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah. Thank you so very much, because that also brings more levity to the conversation. One of the things I also wanted to add too is that a lot of times we talk about the financial aspects, but we haven't talked about the medical aspects that we also should give reparations for, like the Tuskegee experiments. We need reparations for that as well. Also, victims of environmental racism that have been, pushed upon us. When you have factories that are put in our areas so that we end up having higher rates of asthma within our country. Also, when it comes to building the interstate highway systems through our neighborhoods. So therefore, eminent domain was installed so that we would lose our homes, we would lose our land just so that they could put a highway through. So these are some of the other things that people just do not want to talk about when it comes to reparations for us. And then the thing is, they forget about the Black codes that were implemented. And these are some of the things. I also think that reparations should be owed to the Black communities for the crack epidemic that was pushed in by the CIA to fund the wars that the United States has been doing. So these are some of the things that a lot of people just don't think about, because they think about, just slavery. But the thing is, it goes beyond slavery. And also, can we talk about reparations for the slaves that are literally in Angola right now, in Louisiana, that are literally picking cotton today in 2024 for our country. So the thing is that when people talk about, oh, slavery hasn't ended, no, because guess what? If you read the 13th Amendment, there's an exception for slavery. Therefore, meaning slavery's never stopped. Therefore, that debt has been racking up for 400 years. That debt has never stopped. So therefore, when we talk about reparations, we're also talking about for the formerly incarcerated too. We're talking about them. And I think that a lot of people don't talk about it because our formerly incarcerated brethren who are American descendants of slaves also deserve reparations for being put in jail, especially for that law when you get for 10 ounces of I gotta be careful of a particular substance. It's, a white person gets 10 times less the sentence for the powdered version versus we get for the rock version. So I think that's also another point. And feel free to jump in at all, anybody.
Well, the part that I was going to just say was that I think it's very important that we also don't ignore the fact that our people have an open genocide right now, and this has already been brought to the Congress, the abortion clinics, and I think that that's hidden under the guise of women's health, and that is one that we need to actually have a proactive measure on now. I don't think we need to even wait for government to kind of do that, because literally the abortion clinics were started from Margaret Sanger, which literally started the Negro Project. So the Negro Project created these clinics that were set up to kill our babies. And this was something that she wrote to Dr. C.J. Gable in her letter, where she said, we must not let word get out that we are trying to exterminate the Negro populations. So we must work with those pastors, doctors, and those from their community, those whom they trust. And so what they were recognizing was that they were not only seeing that we were that we did not trust them, but they also recognized that in order for their plan to be successful, they were going to need folks that actually were us and looked like us. And so it goes back to the conversation that you were just having about when they were actually focused on those people who look like us but are not us. Well, when we talk about ourselves in relationship with this government is very clear. We're the descendants that were sold as chattel property, Negro slaves here, Negro slaves there, Negro bodies on this. Convict leasing was literally done with contracts with our bodies before there was any monetary debts that was incurred from them. Another thing that I will say is this: when you were talking about the communities, as far as Levittown, one of the things that was written in Special Field Orders 15 was that we were supposed to have a land that no white person whatsoever can reside in unless they were military service. And this was all the way, again, from 1860s. So when we're talking about that type of notion being done, but then we look at the 1930s, 1940s, and even sometimes 1950s, we still see that type of community for the other side of the community, for the white Americans, then it's not unfair that we want that same community for us. And so many times when I see it being read out, that people be like, oh, well, you want a community that no white people could come in? That's racist. Well, you have to go to the conversation that was formed between General Sherman Tecumseh Williams and Secretary of War Edward Stanton, where we asked him, do you want to live among colonies amongst your own or live amongst the white people? And it was not racism from our people that incurred that decision. What incurred that decision was, as one of our Negro ancestors had stated, he said, I believe there is a great hatred among the white community that will take generations to get over. And here we are in 2024 with the second annual Juneteenth festival, and we have over four massacres that have taken place just in this time frame of 2024. So we do need a land for ourselves that we are only able to live in. Not that they cannot come and shop there, not that they cannot come and live on the hotel and have a month or 2 week stays, but they just can't be residents of that. So I think that the notion that we are not allowed to have our own is something that is literally driven from their version of what they're not wanting to give us. And I'll also land on this part here. When we're talking about our reparations, it always has to be through a lens that makes white people feel comfortable. And I don't believe that any reparations, whether it was given to the Japanese, the Jewish, any other people, was made in regards to make us feel comfortable. So I don't believe that this necessary notion that our reparations has to be white pleasing or white passing is necessary, because because albeit that we are considerate of their perspective of our reparations, our harm was specific to us. So therefore, our solution cannot be our solution can't be ignorant of us, if that makes sense. And I'll end there.
I want to make it really clear too, because I don't want the audience to get confused. Reparations is not about solving racism. I want people to understand that. People think, well, once you get reparations, racism is still going to be here. Okay, and reparations is not about getting rid of racism or getting rid of quote unquote anti-blackness. Reparations is specifically about a debt that is owed to a special particular group, and that's those of us who are freedmen, those of us who are Black Americans, who are descendants of the people who were emancipated from American slavery. We have a special federal status that's named freedmen. There are other Black people in this country, people who have who are Jamaican Americans, Nigerian Americans, Ethiopian Americans, Brazilian Americans, Cuban Americans, and they may have the same race of being Black, but reparations will not go to them. That's not saying those people have not been through racial injustice, but they are not the people who in the 1860s, immediately when slavery ended, we should have been getting a check for all the horrors this government had bestowed upon us, and we did not. And instead of paying us, this government continued to double down, triple down, quadruple down, quintuple down, and beyond that, on these wrongs they inflicted upon our people, as you've named, from chattel slavery to Jim Crow to redlining to exclusion from wealth building programs. It hurt other people. To be very honest, white people, speaking of white people, may not see it this way, but racism hurts them too. Anti-Black American hate hurts them too. It hurts the whole country. That's true. But the target, that's what you have to remember. The target of all those things were us, the freedmen. So the people who were targeted are the people who are old. And that's the thing that gets me when I hear people ask, well, how are they going to find out who's really a descendant of the enslaved? This government knows. They had no problem finding us when they were discriminating against us for centuries. They knew how to find us perfectly fine. Then they even passed laws saying, hey, if you find one of them, the Fugitive Slave Act, if you found one of them, take them back to the plantation. They had laws specifically for us to hurt us. Now, don't play stupid and act like they can't do reparations specifically for us who are of the status, because reparations has always been done based on status, not based on race. The moment we put race in it, it'll get struck down because of the 14th Amendment, which calls for equal protection under law, but it's based on status. The Japanese who were interned, it didn't go to all Japanese people. It went to the people of that status who were interned. Native Americans have their different tribal statuses. Navajo, Choctaw, Seminole, those are their statuses, and based on their status, they get their different settlement packages. The Iranian hostages and their descendants, they became a status. The downwinders, the people who were exposed to radiation and their descendants, they are a special status. We have to have a status as well, and that's freedmen. Because if we try to do reparations based on race, it will get shot down immediately. And we have, what's his name, Edward Bloom, who his mission is to go around and try to find something that is race-based and get it struck down. Which we're lucky, because reparations is not a race issue. It's really a justice issue. And our issue is that this country targeted the freedmen with all kinds of government-sanctioned terror. If some punk in the street decided to hurt us, that was wrong. But if they were brought to prison for that wrong, that's different. But if they were allowed to hurt us and get away with that wrong, if they were allowed to discriminate against us, if they were allowed to exclude us from things for which we had a right to participate, that now becomes not just some little punk who did me wrong, it's the federal government who did me wrong. So the federal government cannot cause the issue and then say they don't want to pay the cost of the issue.
Well, just to really quick to add to your point before I let you go, Sabs, also remember that also the enslavers also got reparations after we were freed. So therefore, if you do not agree with us getting reparations, then you need to tell the families of those enslavers to give the money back to. Go ahead, Sabby.
Right. No, that's a good point. I just want to add on to what Marcel said. It's really important that people do understand that it can't be based on race, that the status part is that really does matter, because there have been a couple of efforts that have happened on the local level through the state that have already been shut down. I think one of the ones I heard about recently was Evanston, Illinois. So it's important that you actually have it based on status, because like Marcel said, the 14th Amendment says that you can't do that. So that's just important for people to know and understand.
Racial discrimination.
I think one of these things too. Oh, I'm sorry. Go. Who was talking?
Go ahead, Khalif.
No, Brother Ali was Brother Ali going? I could go after him.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt. No, I was just saying, yeah, the 14th Amendment provides that you can't do racial discrimination, and it provides for equal protection of the laws. At the same time, you're also talking about the fact that racial categories are what they call suspect classifications that trigger the strict scrutiny doctrine, right, which is the highest form of judicial review in the Supreme Court. They've already set precedents from the last case and a few cases before that about racial legislation, racial policy making, and how that is considered unconstitutional according to this court. Now, this court is leaning a certain kind of way. Those positions are lifetime positions, but that's not going to change. And to even get to that, you have to first go through the federal courts. And what we see right now with the Fearless Fund, with the sister Arian Simone, who in her policy for grant giving was very explicit in the language that is for blacks and minorities, and it was excluding white people. They're using the very laws that our ancestors fought for, civil rights laws, etc., that were put in place to push back against racial discrimination and contracting, etc. They're using those same laws to enforce against us for trying to do the same thing in the reverse. So we need to really be careful, and this is why we push so hard to not racialize the term freedman, because the court has acknowledged that the term freedman is a race neutral category, but it's a race neutral category that is designated to a specific group of people in the country who came up from slavery. It's not for all black people. That's why it says it's not blacks writ large, but a specific group of blacks, right? And it's not a racial terminology. The term itself predates the concept of race. So we have a way of approaching it, and I think we need to be very careful and very protective over it so that we don't mess it up and give the wrong people the wrong ideas about what we're actually trying to do. You understand? So that's my position on it.
And it's important. We are dealing with an extremely conservative Supreme Court. But what's interesting is Brett Kavanaugh, Neil Gorsuch, and Clarence Thomas, who's Gullah Geechee, who's right over the bridge from me from Savannah, Georgia. They even acknowledge the freedman status, or acknowledge how, the people who are done wrong. In the case when they was talking about affirmative action, they was like, it should not be done based on race, but if it was done for the descendants of the people who this nation wronged, maybe that's the way. And Neil Gorsuch and Clarence Thomas actually pretty much co-sign that it has to be status-based, and they use the term freedmen. Now, reparations has never been done in this nation before, so this is unprecedented territory, but America knows how to do reparations. They've done it before, and they're doing it right now. That's the thing I need people to understand. When they ask for where's the money going to come, ask America, because they're paying reparations right now, and none of us are seeing an increase on our taxes. I know, believe it or not, I'm going to use Donald Trump as an example. Okay, before I get there, I'm going to use Alan Greenspan and Ben Bernanke. Alan Greenspan and Ben Bernanke were two chairs of the Federal Reserve. One is extremely conservative. Don't quote me. I think Ben Bernanke is the conservative one. Alan Greenspan, I might be wrong, is the extremely liberal one. I might be getting their positions wrong. Both of them are on record saying the American government can never run out of money. It can never default on its loans. It can generate as much money as it needs. Janet Yellen, not too much of a fan of hers, but she's right now the head of our U.S. Treasury. She's on record saying the same thing. But Donald Trump went on record saying the same thing, that the American government will never default. It has as much money as it needs. When people ask Donald Trump about debt, this is Donald Trump now. He said, what's the matter with debt? He was like, that is a good thing. He was like, I made a lot of money from that. He's like, the American government makes a lot of money from that. Now, you may have your different opinions about him, but he was telling the truth. Also, look at what America's doing with debt right now. They are canceling student loan debt, which, by the way, I don't know why they just don't do all of it. But, that's a whole other conversation. They're canceling PPP loan debt, which is funny. With student loan debt, they want to do a little portion of it. PPP loan debt that went to these corporations, they're canceling all of it. America's canceling trillions in debt right now as we speak. America issues bonds that they monetize that to bring in far more money. The issue is we, the American people, don't see the money. It mainly goes to corporations and to people in Congress who strangely make $170,000 a year, but are all millionaires, and no one ever seems to question that. So my thing is, we're not going to get into this how you're going to pay for it game where no one asks that question for anything else. But not only that, the people in government are on record letting us know that there is nothing for which America cannot pay. Once America accounts for inflation, America can pay for anything. And on the matter of inflation, Donald Trump spent almost as much money as any other sitting president. He is on record, spent trillions of dollars. And yet, the truth be told, inflation in modern history was at a historic low under Donald Trump. So people need to stop acting like America can't afford its debt to us because it's going to run up inflation and ruin the economy, when we have on record Franklin Roosevelt, Barack Obama, and Donald Trump, three presidents who spent a historically high level of money, and yet inflation underneath them was at a historic low. And it is on record that had they not spent that amount of money, the nation would have crashed. People don't like to hear this. People want to hold on to this myth that the federal government is financed by tax dollars. And yet these are the same people who will say, well, the federal government, stop taxing me. You don't need my tax money. Can't have it both ways.
Well said there, Marcel. I just want to I'll just have one question real quick, JB, and I'll pivot to you. I was going to go to the solutions question.
Sure.
Or did you want to wait for that one? Okay.
Well, I just wanted to lay out an article really quick, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to share this article because in fact, I got this article from you, Saps. So one of the things I wanted to share was this out of the Boston Globe. This is out of the Boston Globe. It says that was no typo. The median net worth of Black Bostonians really is $8. So this actually talks about how there is a massive wealth disparity that we see among Black people in Boston compared to white people in Boston. And so it says, which conducted thousands of interviews, it talks about how there is a household median net worth was $247,500 for whites, $8 for U.S. Blacks, the lowest of all 5 cities. And so there's even a disparity between U.S. Blacks, which is American descendants of slaves, versus Caribbean Blacks who make $12,000. So it just goes to show that there are even disparities among the Black population when you compare to American descendants of slaves or freedmen compared to Black people who are of immigrant descent. It is just crazy, the gulf that we see. And I just wanted to bring one of those things out as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say, having lived here, it's true. They got a lot of that data from Dr. Sandy Darity, because when Dr. Sandy Darity came on, he was like, they got that information from me, but because they don't mention that in the article, but that's what they got the data from. But no, it's 100% true. And I'm pretty sure if you look up cities like Philly, New York, maybe start with New York City, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Nashville, Raleigh, Charlotte, I'm sure you'll probably see similar numbers. So there is a large racial wealth gap. But the other thing that was interesting about the article as well is that Jaybe pointed out the disparities among like the diaspora. And that's another thing too, that you will notice. Those of us that have lived in the South, it is different moving to the Northeast, because in the Carolinas, where I lived before I lived in Massachusetts, most Black people that I knew were descendants of slavery. When I moved to New York City and then to Boston, it was more of a diaspora. And what I noticed in like talking to people is they explained to me how they were able to start a business in the United States, that the government would give them money to help them. Whereas those of us who were born here, we weren't given some of those opportunities. They weren't giving us the money. It's just crazy. Like if you talk to one of the guys I used to know that owned a nail salon, I asked him, I said, how do you get to, own a business? Like when you come here, like, did you already have money before you came here? Or like, how did you do this? And he said, oh no, the government, the US government helped me. I don't have to pay taxes for the first 10 years on the business because I'm an immigrant. And I was like, say what? So this was something I was not aware of until he explained that to me a couple years ago. And he said, they don't do this for you. I said, no.
No.
More businesses if they did that for us. But the problem is that is a wrong that was never repaired. That difference there between the 250 something thousand compared to $8, how do you end up with a gap that large? And that goes back to, again, the neighborhoods I was telling you about. Beacon Hill was once a Black neighborhood. Black people can't afford to live in Beacon Hill now. That's where a lot of, like, Tom Brady had a house in Beacon Hill. So this is what people have been pushed out. You mentioned this before about New York City, Jaybe, about Central Park. That was once Seneca Village. There was someone that was talking about a story recently. This has come back up in the news again. The Philadelphia story, how the city bombed an entire apartment complex in Philadelphia.
Talking about move, right?
Move bombing.
Talking about move.
Yeah, my family remembered that because I'm originally from Camden, which is across, basically across the river. So yeah, I was actually talking to some cousins last year when I went to my grandmother's funeral, and we were talking. And I asked them about the move bombing, and they remember it specifically. And yes, they killed men, women, and children. People say the United States would never do that. That's also another means for reparations too. The bombing in Philadelphia back in 1985.
Yeah, and so the question I think that Jaybe and I have as well is like in reference to solutions. So we've seen quite a number of people say, no reparations, no vote, which I totally understand. But what I've also noticed is now is I feel like this is the first time that I can remember where we do have candidates that do have a reparations platform. Yeah, like, so for example, I think she was at the rally and it said a couch. I think it says like, who are you going to vote for, a couch, Biden or Trump? And she selected couch. So I think one of the questions Jaybe and I have is, now you do have candidates that are running that do have reparation plan, like a reparation plan or policy. Why not mobilize people to vote for reparations, to vote for that person? Either one of them.
Well, I've always said that if a system is going to be a part of your life, no matter what you do, because the truth be told, all the wrong that's been done to us as freedmen has come from the political system. We tried separating from the political system before. Khalif mentioned, remember, we built our Black Wall Streets on our own. Okay, the political system was terrorizing us, and because we didn't have that political power and protection, they either burnt our Wall Streets down, flooded them, put a highway or railroad through them. So politics is going to do us whether we do politics or not. So my approach has always been, don't withdraw from the system, take it over. So I only ran for office because I'm trying to live by example. If you don't see any candidate who is offering what you want, then it is incumbent upon you to become the candidate who has the policies you want. And in this case, it's the policies we deserve. So I get the sentiment too, but I have not been a fan of sitting this one out. I understand in some cases, if a person's not doing anything that you feel is going to benefit you, then be that as it may. But instead of sending it out, I believe we need to step further in, and we need to step up and become those candidates. And if we are truly as passionate and we are truly as dedicated to getting reparations as we say, then any candidate who runs with that platform, especially in the way that it should be, should not have any shortage of supporters to help work for them and help get that message out. So that's my attitude. Take over the system, don't withdraw from it.
Yeah, I think echoing what Brother Marcel was just saying, The last thing we would want to do is to find ourselves irrelevant in the system. And I don't think that that's something that our ancestors would have wanted. I mean, they didn't get sprayed with water hoses and bit by police dogs and shotguns in their face to be irrelevant or absent. I'm thinking, to be honest, when I look at all of this and just look at the landscape, I take a little bit more of, I was a professional football player, so my logic and everything is typically based around a lot of the type of game planning that we would have, and we typically plan to win, but we also have a contingency plan if that plan doesn't work. To go ahead and actually look at what's going on with reparations in America, the jostling and hoopla that they're always trying to make us jump through, the things that our ancestors, as Brother Ali just mentioned, have fought for, they're now using as a bar against us. And I don't think you could have ever presented a solution to our ancestors that said, "Hey, what you're fighting for today is going to hurt you tomorrow." I think that what we're really seeing is a beguiling of this government, and it does not matter what time period we're in. I think what we're really recognizing and having to come to deal and come to terms with is that we are still prisoners of war. We are in this country as such. And so every decision from every non-group of people that's like us, whether they be black or not, if they're not an American Negro person, then they're going to be a benefit for this country. And in this country's eyes, they're going to invest in those benefits. When we're looking at what we're wanting, this country is not wanting to invest in our benefit. And we could see the truth of that with our burnt down towns that came out of slavery, picking ourselves up by our own bootstraps, only to have our investment, our generational wealth squandered. Whether you're talking about redlining, a lot of these things are mentioned in a book called Anti-Negro Thought as well. And what you'll find in there is congressional people, senators, governors, all with this notion that the Negro is to not be allowed to grow in America. And so understanding that, coupling that with Obama, saying that Obama removed the use in terms of the word Negro, coupling that with OMB saying Negro is not affiliated to Black American and African American, then what you're essentially looking at is a government that wants to wipe the Negroes from its memory. It wants to then recreate the Negro in an image of an all-inclusive Black person, which history does not reflect. When we were sold, when you wrote grandfather clauses, they were abolishing the Negro. As we just seen, the Caribbean people who were Black, the African people who were Black, under the status of immigrant, they have $12,000. Whereas our people, our ancestors who helped build this country, upon whom picked ourselves up, fell down, picked ourselves up, were torn down, picked ourselves up, bad contracts, picked ourselves up, are not even allowed to generate this wealth. And I think what comes throughout all of this as a solution is either going to be war and bloodshed, or this country's going to have to pay her bills. And I don't see any other type of future or reality outside of that, due to the fact that our people have taken the passive route so long, and many generations have come to find, we forgive you and peace, and we're always wanting to be loving to all. But I do believe there is a generation that will come up that will no longer seek which president to vote for. They will no longer seek which political party to be with. They will no longer seek which way is the right way. Oh, I can't say Negro, so now I got to say Freedmen. I can't pass this bar, they're going to say, to hell with all of that. How did the colonizers that enslaved my people got this country? What did they do? And that generation will not be seeking reparations, because some reparations will be paid for the same way that they were recompensed. And I do believe that there's a righteous indignation that our people carry within us, which is why the epitome of violence is so high within our community. It's just that we're not taking that violence out on those sources upon which cause that pain. And I do believe that even if you look through the myriad of generations of our youth who are tattooed up from head to toe, our women are revealing, our people are hurting. Our people have been traumatized, and our people are victims. And there will come a day or a time to where the solution, if not done on pen and paper like our ancestors tried to do after the bloody war, will then go in reverse, to where there will be like the Civil War, where there was no paper solution. And then after that war, they'll come to the table like they did with our ancestors. And I only see that as being the true alternative, because whether you're Cornel West with a reparations plan, or whether you're Donald Trump or Joe Biden, I don't believe that what really needs to happen in America will take place from a president. It's actually a consciousness, and it's going to be an awakening of the American Negro people to then say our descendants will no longer be disrespected, and I'm a generation that will not allow that. And I think that that generation is coming up behind us faster than our generations in the past. We're trying to go ahead and find that peaceful solution with the highly, highly violent oppressor. And I'll land there.
I want to say someone's been asking.
I will definitely get in there after Marcel, for sure.
I won't take me long. Someone's been asking in the comments repeatedly about what's the amount, and that's a very fair question to ask. I want to make it very clear to people. One, even if all freedmen in America were rich, let's say we all were trillionaires, we are still owed reparations. I want to make that very clear. This ain't no lift people out of poverty program. As it so happens, after you terrorize people for 400 years, yeah, they're going to be disproportionately in poverty and disproportionately wealthy. I hate when some people act like we're being victims when we talk about what America has done to us. They don't ever tell Native Americans when they say never forget, you're being victims, stop it. No, they tell Native Americans never forget. They don't tell Holocaust survivors, get over it. They tell them never forget. So damn it, I am going to never forget nor forgive what's been done to my people, and I'm not ashamed. They can't victim shame me. I want to be very clear about that. Number two, to the person who's been asking that, you cannot calculate, as awful as it is, you can't calculate hurt feelings. You can't calculate what it's like to see your loved ones hanging from a tree. You can't calculate the shame and indignities and all those things that we've experienced. But you can calculate the wealth that we generated during American slavery. That's been calculated several times, and it's somewhere between 48 to 82 trillion dollars, believe it or not. You can't calculate how much wealth we were robbed of being able to achieve when they locked us out of the Social Security Act, Labor Union Act, GI Bill, the Homestead Act, the New Deal, which largely excluded Black Americans. You can calculate land theft. You can calculate when the Federal Housing Authority helped white Americans become homeowners, but at the same time, we're putting a memo in place to put railroads and highways through Black American freedmen neighborhoods. This ain't no long time ago. So I have a formula on my website, and the formula that I use to calculate the loss, the debt that's owed to us, is $2.8 million per eligible recipient, and that will be paid in monthly installments. You can't give 45 to 50 million something people, because there are Black immigrants, like around 5 million of our population. So like 45 to 50 million people. You can't give everyone that money all at once. You will definitely have hyperinflation. So it will be paid in installments over a period of time. And I am going to put my website in the chat here, and if you want to go look at that plan, I'll love to talk with you about it.
So we of the Negro Collective have definitely, I seen Brother Jaybe put it up. There's a resolution that I've already given here in my state, Washington State. We call it the Negro Collective put it together. My actual senator here, her name is Emily Randall, looked at it. She started me. She was the one that told me start this petition. So we got that going to kind of segue the. I don't believe that, I strictly disagree with Marcel. I've had this a couple times. I don't believe this system is going to work, period. And I encourage people to get the hell on that couch. I don't believe this system is ever going to get us. I believe we're going to have to use Special Field Order 15 that was treasonously taken away by the Confederate tie, or the president that took Abraham Lincoln's place, Andrew Johnson. When he did that, everything changed. And since then, the Confederates have taken, really what happened when they killed Lincoln was this turned into the Confederate States of America, period. And it is shown in every policy written. We ain't talking about anything else but policies and practices that has harmed our people, period. And everything is in this, the document that Jaybe is sharing at this moment. Everything's in that resolution that we need. We need a president to sign an executive order, call killing or taking what Andrew Johnson did, calling that out for what it is a treasonous action, revitalizing Special Field Orders 15, which was the highest law of the land. It is a war order that came from. We don't need legislation. We don't need red and blue. We don't need any of that. We need the people to realize their power and literally get it implemented through the law that was taken stripped away from our people by treasonous action. And I'll stop right there. But I believe in my heart that red and blue, I don't care who you are, that is not going to get us. This system built to defeat our people is not going to give us nada. And I land my plane. Thank you.
Let me be clear. When I say the system, I'm not talking about participating in duopoly or even these so-called third parties we have now, like Libertarian Party, the Green Party. I feel they all really suck. I really do. But I'm looking at we talk about our ancestors, right? Let's look at what our ancestors did immediately after slavery ended. What was the first thing they did? They ran for office and they got elected. I'm here in South Carolina, the state that was the epicenter of that. Joseph Rainey was the first non-white person and the first black person to be elected to U.S. Congress. Then he was followed by Robert Smalls. South Carolina is the only state in American history to have a majority black state legislature. Our people realized the system sucked and it was terrorizing them and it was brutal towards them. So they said, you know what? The system is only the way it is if we allow it to be the way it is. And they ran for office and took over, and they did a phenomenal job, even helping out not just their own people, but even white people flourish underneath their rule. So I am just looking at the example set by our ancestors. If they did that in the 1800s, and y'all, things are awful, let's be honest, but they are nowhere near as awful as they were in the 1800s. Can you imagine? In the 1800s, they ran for office and got elected in the 1800s, and they did the things that our people needed in the 1800s. If they can do it in the 1800s, we can do it now. I feel that sometimes we want to choose the path of least resistance, and the path of least resistance gets you the least of anything at all.
Just wanted to, if it's okay, if I can read that Special Field Order number 15 really quick.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so I want to make sure that I get that in.
That too, Brother Jay. Just what Brother Jamin just mentioned. So many times we said we're looking for the apology for slavery, and I think Brother Jamin kind of hit that ancestral note right on the head. We need an apology for the treasonous act of Andrew Johnson, and we need to recognize that what president comes in after winning a war to then take away those things upon which lawfully in war law, literally it's called the booty on land and the prize on sea, and this is called the bounties of war. The literal victor, to the victor goes the spoils. This is ancestral, this is ancient law, this is principles of law. And this man came in and told the Negroes that they were not going to get what the president prior, who was assassinated, and his general and his secretary of war had come together with a full consensus to give. That was not only just betrayal, but it was treasonous. And seeing that treasonous act done, it should be looked at no different than they tried to do Trump with the impeachment for J6. Andrew Johnson literally had an impeachment trial. I believe he had 13 articles, 11 went through, then they adjourned C. Nadia. But we need an apology for that, because our ancestors died under the auspice of knowing that there was something for this war that was going to be given to not if them, to their offspring. And the fact that that was not transferred, that wealth transfer from slavery, we literally see a huge betrayal. And I don't think you can find any more work time as what Brother Marcel just found for our people to be in a position of saying we earned this and this was taken away. Because in that moment, nothing was given to the Negro people. But yes, please definitely read Special Field Order 15. Absolutely. It's the pinnacle of reparations.
Okay.
Can I? Oh, go ahead, Jaybe, then I'll go.
Okay. So this is Special Field Order number 15. That says, whereas after the U.S. Civil War on January 12, 1865, General William T. Sherman, the Secretary of War, Edwin M. Stanton, met with a group of Negro community leaders consisting of Negro Baptist and Methodist ministers from Savannah, Georgia. And they asked, "What do you want for your own people?" They replied, "The way we can best take care of ourselves is to have land." Whereas on January 16th, 1865, Special Field Order Number 15 was a military order issued during the American Civil War by General William T. Sherman, commander of the Military Division of the Mississippi of the United States. The Special Field Order Number 15 were fully enforceable by wartime law. They had the authority of General William T. Sherman, the U.S. Secretary of War, Edwin M. Stanton, as well as the Republican President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. The Sea Islands and 330 miles of coastline from Charleston, South Carolina, to the St. Johns River of Florida, 30 miles back from the sea, was to be given as spoils of war to Negro families so that the injustices of slavery might be addressed and reparations could be made. This would enable families to build a future for themselves with their skills and labor. We, the people of Washington State, fervently and unequivocally support the federal reparations program to address the fundamental injustice, cruelty, brutality, and inhumanity of slavery in the United States and the 13 American colonies between 1776 and 1964, and legal segregation and accrued disadvantages for descendants of slavery. Please go ahead, Sabs.
This question here from Justin. Why not work with a party that has a goal to make reparations happen in its platform? The Green Party is the only political party working towards reparations. How does everyone on the panel feel about that? Because I think like one of the things that Jaybe and I've noticed before, anytime we attend rallies, and there's been a number of them, it feels good when we're at the rally, but then when we leave a rally, we're always asking, okay, what is the next step? What is the action plan? Where is the movement? And I've done this about multiple issues, whether it's been healthcare, whether it's been foreign policy, et cetera. I'm always asking, okay, what's the next step? I just want to know. And then a lot of times I feel like there is no next step. But what do you think about what Justin said here? Be brutally honest.
I think that, first of all, if the party is truly working towards reparations, then they will be working with us. If you could find me, Sabby Sabs, and you can find me, James, then they could find me too. I'm not a secret. Fox News has found me. Okay, Newsmax has found me. I got more Go Back to Africa emails than I've ever got in my life before, all right? If all those groups can find me, then the Green Party can find me as well. Okay, and let's be honest, the Democratic Party has been so-called working towards reparations for the longest as well, and they've had complete control over the government, the presidency, the House, and the Senate, and there's been absolutely no movement on reparations. They just dangle it like a golden carrot, which we're always going to be able to see, but never going to be able to grab, for which we're never going to be able to benefit. I'm willing to work with any one of any party. I don't even go by party. I go by policy. So any person, irrespective of party, that's pushing forward a policy that is just and that is going to help people, I am going to support. So I'm not against working with the Green Party, but if they mean like go and shift and run underneath the Green Party or become a card-carrying member of the Green Party, no, that's not something I'm willing to do. They're going to have to show that they want to work with me. And again, y'all have found me. Other people have found me. They could find me as well.
So I just want to add, this points to something that we did discuss on the after show a couple nights ago, is that sometimes you have to meet people where they are, right? So this is some of the frustration I think that I've had, and maybe some others have had with third parties just in general, is that sometimes you have to meet people where they are. The people aren't always going to come to you. So I think that's something that, thank you for saying that, Marcel, because I think that is something that could be helpful for them.
Yeah.
And let me just say, I'm sorry, I want to be very quick as well. So I have the same frustration as you. I've been to so many rallies. I've spoken with so many politicians. We support reparations. I'm not settling for support anymore. I expect more. My expectations are high. I want to have action. All they give is support. Support is nothing without action.
Well, do you think there could be a way to blend movements? Because I do feel like there just does seem to be a splinter of sorts. When I interviewed Yvette Carnell, I did ask her, I was like, what if there was like a push as to make demands, like demand reparations? So we are not going to give any support unless there is reparations for descendants of slavery. And she explained to me that they tried to do that, I think in 2020. And they got smeared by Joy Reid as right wing or whatever. But I just feel like when I look at the rallies, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of people. But I feel like there could be so many more. You need 5%, they say, to have like a massive movement. They say you need 5% of the population. And I just wonder, like, what if there was this huge movement that said, we are not going to support any of these candidates without reparations? I feel like that would make like national news, and maybe that could move something somewhere. I don't know.
I think even more.
Can I? Oh, go ahead.
More, I'm just going to be very quick. An even more potent move would be if the Green Party said, you know what? If you don't support reparations, just for example, we are going to run cannons against every single last one of you. That gets their attention, because sometimes a lot of these people are in races where the margin is very, very slim. And sometimes just having another person there, it gets their attention. Look, me going against Clyburn, everyone knows it's an uphill battle defeating Clyburn, right? And yet his tune has changed completely about reparations before I ran against him. It's put him on the defense, and other people question him. There's videos all over the place of Clyburn cursing people out, raising his voice at people who come to him about reparations. Sometimes running a race, yes, you want to win the election, but even if you don't win the election, it doesn't mean you lose. Sometimes you get the message out there, and it puts other people on alert. So yes, withholding our support can definitely work, but sometimes putting other people on the ballot with that platform is going to bring you attention just as a candidate, and using that as your platform to call them out, that speaks even more volumes. I'm sorry, Jamin.
What was the question? The original question, how it was framed? I'm sorry.
Oh, you held up the sign that said boycott something. But
that's the NAACP. I'm going to, here in Washington State, I'm going to this Sunday, actually. I'm going to a rally, and I am literally voicing my voice. I'm what's it called? Volunteering for that. But that, so I'm going to go and show my voice and my disapproval of a organization that looks like us, supposed to represent us, but is consistently stabbing us in the back. And I'm tired of that. So, but your original question was, it was about, what you just...
Oh, like building like a large movement.
Yeah, yes, with the Green Party. That was the question. Thank you, Sabby. I will tell you exactly why it doesn't work. And I'm sorry, this guy ain't returning my phone calls. We know as activists what that means. So I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm going to tell you exactly why it doesn't work. It happened last night. I've been working in solidarity with Jason Call from the Green Party for years. He's the campaign manager for Jill Stein, that doesn't support reparations, has nothing on her. So last night, I told him, don't bring any, I'm sorry to say it, I hope I don't get in trouble, but don't bring no raccoonery my way, period. We don't want that. If you don't have stuff for the Black American Negro freedmen, if you don't stand for cash reparations for those people, I don't want to see them. So he brought this dude to me, Kwame, from the Black Liberation Party or whatever, Panthers. And I asked him, do you support, which none of them do. No Panther supports this mission. None of them, because they have foreign interests above ours. We are Americans. And I'm going to say that with bass in my voice. We're Americans, and this harm happened in America. to us. And these people are trying to go along to get along, and we can't anymore, y'all. We can't. To get paid, we need to get this for us first. Let's do this chronologically. Again, I'm going to say this. Let's do this chronologically. And in order, we're up next. And I don't want to push it, but that's why the Green Party and people that think like that, Jason Carl included, do not work for this movement for our people. Why? Because they want us to hold hands with allies. I don't like allies. I like co-defendants. Why? Because I know in that situation, from the experience I have, those are the only real people that got your back and will keep their mouth shut or get down when it's time to get down. Those are the only, and I'm speaking not physically violence, none of that. I'm saying the mentality of convicts are the only people that I know when they say something, they mean it. And all these politicians, that ain't where it's at. So I'm sorry for
I do just want to correct something really quick. I don't know about Jason, but Jill Stein has a cash reparations plan on her platform.
Yeah.
It's nowhere near real reparations. Reparations are in that resolution that I just showed. The only real repair that we can get is through policies like that. Special field order is, if you're not standing on that square right there and saying we demanding that payment, we have in that resolution I gave, we also did the minimum of land purchases within the 3 states. We got the number too, and it's 1.45 million. This is a minimum number. We as a Negro collective ride with more with, and nothing is going to get us paid, our people paid for the harms that's been done. Let me say that first. But we ride with California in saying what we suggest would be 5 million, but the minimum, going acre by acre, the minimum with that lands in the lands promised is 1.45 million. All the math is done for you. All you got to do is look at that resolution, AmericanUnionReparations.com. It's right there. I yield.
And also too, that speaks to a certain perspective that I had mentioned earlier, where everyone else outside of the American Negro people, the descendants of freedmen who came from American chattel slavery, their opinions, we have to really treat like the Jewish people treat with the Nazis. And I think when we really start taking that into consideration, we'll start cleaning up the aisles, if that makes sense. Because a Nazi descendant or a Nazi could never go to a descendant of a Holocaust victim or those victims themselves and say whether that is too much or too little. That just isn't allowed. And I think that what we allow sometimes seems to be as something of acceptance, when in fact, I don't care whether white people are happy or not. See, when we get our reparations, we have to remove this notion that we're trying to make everybody pleased. And this is what I said earlier as well. Our reparations is not to please people. This is what also Brother Marcel echoed earlier. Our reparations isn't a program. It's not to help all Black people. It's not to get every Black people who were descendants of slaves. If you're from the Caribbean, CARICOM's for you. If you're from other places, build up those infrastructures to set up and establish those reparation committees or task forces to get what you need from your government for your people's harms. In America, the American Negro was harmed by our government. And due to that harm, and this is why, again, Special Field Orders 15 is what I always throw in their face, Brother Jaybe Font. I know you was reading our abbreviated version on there, but definitely, please read the real Special Field Order 15, because what a lot of people are missing is that our ancestors had already thought of the hard, heavy lifting. They've already thought. This was 21 elders. This was, I believe it was 20. I believe it was 21 or 23. This was 20 plus of our elders who, if you look at the transcripts, and it's also in that thread, they were slaves. So when you see them say that they were reverends, they were chaplains, look at who they were prior. It said freed how? Freed by the Union soldiers, freed by escaping a plantation and going to the Union. So a lot of those deacons and pastors that you're hearing from that wrote Special Field Order 15, they're from the downtrodden field. They're from that field of pain. They're not just people who stood on the sideline who were free Blacks who never had to endure the whip. These were people who literally escaped for their freedom. So when they wrote Special Field Orders 15, they kept in mind their security. So when you see the government is going to protect us, that's keeping in mind our security. When you see that the government's going to furnish them gunboats to protect their waterways, this is keeping in mind our community, our security. When you see that no white person whatsoever, unless by government authority, shall reside there, it's not saying white people aren't welcome. It's saying that you can't have a residence there. No different than I can go into that whites only store just like they did on the movie Life, but that pie is for whites. No matter the amount of money that he had, he couldn't buy that pie because it wasn't for him. So this is the same. See, it's funny how when we look at it with white people, it's like it's okay. But when we say the same thing, I want a community with all of my own people. I don't want to share it with anybody else. I want to have just a Negro community that we actually build Negro wealth in, like our ancestors did in Negro towns. So in order to rebuild that, we have to first come to the understanding and consciousness that when they did what they did, how they did it was the perfect way. We're trying to rebuild that with a better security apparatus, because we're not taking into account the security necessary that came to foot, like Tulsa massacres, Rosewood, Wilmington, Durham, North Carolina, all these places that were our pinnacles of wealth. We literally lost them due to terrorism. So that means that we needed a better security apparatus. When you read Special Field Orders 15, you'll see that every line item was indicative of protecting their bloodline, protecting their people. And in understanding that, you can understand why they wrote it the way they did. And it makes sense, the language that is written in there. What were you going to say, Sister Sab?
I just want to share something really quick because I do want people to see this. And I'll be really quick,
No.
Jaybe. So in reference to Field Order 15, because I do just want people to see this because this is the most extensive that I've seen so far. And I know Dr. West also agrees, supports reparations on his platform too, but this one is this one's very, very detailed. So on Jill Stein's platform for reparations and to facilitate Black agenda liberation, this part here, scholars and activists who have studied and formulated propositions for reparations itself have put the minimum cash value of reparations at 12 trillion to be paid to those who claim legitimate descendancy from enslaved Blacks prior to the Civil War. This number is derived not only from stolen labor prior to 1865, but also from the reneged promise of the Field Order 15, commonly referred to as 40 acres and a mule, which was never made good upon. So that I just wanted people to know that is included there. And it's a long list. I will say her policies are very long, but I did want people to know this is not just about programs.
Yeah, thank you for that, Sister Sabs. And one thing I will say is that those, we wouldn't call, the Department of Plantation and Settlements, the Department of Plantation and Settlements, but we would call it something else now, right? We would modernize it, right? But one thing I do want to let everybody know, and this is just something that the ancestors had laid on my heart and they had revealed unto me. People always say, how will this get paid, right? If you look at Special Field Orders 15, its authority comes from the War Department, now known as the Department of Defense. And that change came through the use of updates through a Senate bill that was to update all of the terminologies and departments of America. So the War Department of then is the Department of Defense today. It's the same department operating under the same adjudication of authority. So it never got a new authority because it got a new name. That's what I'm trying to say. So we need that same type of Department of Plantation and Settlements. Maybe it just can be in the Freedmen's Bureau. Maybe it would be something different. But one thing I want to let everybody know is this. The money to do that will come from the War Department or the Department of Defense. Whose budget is approved every year without any contention? The Department of Defense. So we will be a tab in the Department of Defense. And people will say, well, why would you be able to be allowed into the Department of Defense for your reparations? Well, when Special Field Orders was written, Special Field Orders 15 was written, its allocation of authority for its purposes was from the War Department. So therefore, the allocation of its reinstitution and the funding to get it done, because everybody talks about the money, will come from the same War Department or Department of Defense. All that's just missing is the bill that's required to get it done. And I believe that what Brother Jamin Mason had put up from our Negro Collective was a resolution, which then would create the bill, which then would create the movement. Because our reparations needs that movement, right? And we need to not jostle with people saying, well, where will the money come from? How will it get paid? How will it get done? Just go to the Department of Defense, create a new thing like they did for the Office of New Immigrants, just like they do for the Office of whatever, and just put our office there, have our descendants run it, have our lineage run it and operate it, and get the people working in it to be from our lineage, so that way they can operate with people of their own. Just like you go to a Jewish thing, there's Jewish people there helping Jewish descendants for Jewish personal issues. I believe the American Negro is afforded the same, and not nothing greater nor less than.
Mm-hmm. I want to go over to Gregg and Brother Ali. I know you guys wanted to talk about signing the petition, Brother Ali.
Yes, absolutely. So what we've done at the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen was we created a draft executive order, which we proposed to the Biden administration. And accompanying that, we also created a petition to show the administration that we can drum up the support necessary to let him know, let the administration know that we are absolutely serious about him creating a commission to study reparations proposals and to also make recommendations to Congress at the same time. So the petition link is there on the website, usadof.org. If you scroll up, you'll see it is right in the center of the main page. Also, yeah, that's it right there. You see it. The link is right there, so people can go to the link, to the website, usadof.org. As soon as you come to that page, you'll see it right there in the center of the main page. Also, the actual executive order that we drafted, you'll see that there's a link to that underneath the article section, and an accompanying letter explaining exactly why this commission would be necessary and what the functions of it would be. And so that's really all I had left to say. Is I just want the family to, if they could, lend their support to the efforts by signing this petition and also sharing it with your family and friends and letting them know that this is a very serious issue and we need to exercise and flex our political muscle and let the Biden administration know that we're serious. We're here. You're not going to overlook us. You're not going to just replace us with immigrants for votes, etc. This debt is owed to our families, and we want you to do something. You said you were going to have our backs, and so this is a way that you can do it.
Okay. And Gregg, please.
I just want to end by reiterating some points. That one, reparations is not about ending racism. Racism is a separate topic. It's about a debt that is owed to the people who were emancipated in the 1860s, the freedmen, and yet instead of getting paid, we were continually targeted after that for 100 years. America cannot cause a problem and yet say the cost they now have to pay for causing that problem is too much. If we set that standard, we are sending a scary message to our government that they can do wrong and never have to repair it. Two, America has done reparations many, many times, and they're doing it right now. That is a point I will not allow people to ever forget. They are literally paying reparations right now. It's only an issue when it's supposed to come to the freedmen. I will also say number three is that our nation can absolutely afford it. No one's ever really concerned about the debt, or they're not too concerned to take any action. They're not concerned about the debt when this country is spending trillions of dollars on Israel, Ukraine, foreign wars, conflict, the military budget, bailing out corporations. They're not concerned about the budget at all when Congress is giving themselves a raise with their 13% approval. They're only concerned about the quote-unquote debt and the deficit to the point where they want to take action, so they claim, when it's time to pay the reparations to us as freedmen. And I'm just going to stand on this point. If we are unhappy with this system, the system is only as good as the people who make up this system. So it's our responsibility to exercise our civic right and civic duty to get involved and change the system to one that's going to work for us. That's what our ancestors did. Coming off the plantation, they went straight into government. If they can do it in the 1800s, we can do it now in the 2020s.
Yeah. Before you end, Gregg, if you can tell us where we can find you and what you have coming up, and then afterwards, you can, Brother Ali, you can do that as well.
You can find me at Marcel for Congress, MarcelForCongress. I'm very active on my Twitter. Come on at your own risk. Marcel, the number 4 Congress. And as far as what I have coming up, I have a lot of little events that's coming up in South Carolina. Look, I've been a little overwhelmed. When I first ran on the Democratic ticket, I was not getting invited hardly anywhere. Now that I'm running third party, strangely, I'm getting invited everywhere. I've got more in these past 2 months than I did in the almost 2 years where I was on the Democratic ticket. So you already can have an idea about what they were possibly doing. But there's that right there.
All right. And Brother Ali, please.
Yes, sir. You can find our work primarily at usadof.org. We've been currently working with our Freedmen family in the state of Massachusetts, excuse me. I was going to say Connecticut because they're also working in Connecticut. They're really the New England Freedmen. So they work between Connecticut and Massachusetts. So we've been working with them and various members of reparations task forces there in the state, as well as certain state legislators, and trying to get established some legislation that will be protective and very productive for our family up there. So that's what we've been doing lately. And like I said, you'll find us usadof.org. Sometimes we're on Twitter. We might do Twitter spaces here and there. We kind of cut that down because there's a lot of chaos going on Twitter. So we kind of fell back with that a little bit and try to just focus more on the actual people in the streets and trying to educate folks. We've done some seminars and basically explain to people why we use the term freedman as opposed to any other racial classifications or categories, and the significance of it as it relates to us as a class of people in this country. And so that's basically what it is. We've just been doing a lot of education. We've sent an amicus to the Supreme Court pertaining to the affirmative action case and explaining our position on the Freedmen family in this country and the usage of this terminology and the significance of it. The court seemed to agree with a lot of what it is that we had to say about that. That's also on the website. You can read our amicus. You can read the draft executive order that we sent to the Biden administration, as well as the letter accompanying that. So it's a lot of work. And so I just wanted to say, because I saw something about a study, the executive order that we submitted is not about doing another study. What it really is it's an order that will create, if he was to sign the order as is, it would actually create a presidential commission on reparations that what they would do is look into the harms that occurred to our class of people in this country, and then the president should make recommendations based on the reports of those harms to Congress about how to eradicate the problems which we identify as the badges and incidents of slavery. And so that's what that really is about. So when you look at the petition, if you read it, it's actually explained in there. This is a petition for a redress of grievances. It's not about really a study. I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you so much, Gregg and Brother Ali. Want to move on as well to Khalif as well. What do you have coming up, and what is new, and where people can find you as well?
Well, thank you for this, man. And what I have coming up is some gardening duties and some videos that I have to upload for our people. One thing that I love doing is keeping the garden and keeping our people just reminded from where we come from. And we were the people who were the builders of America, and we fed the country, and we provided clothing for other nations as well. So one thing that I do is stay true to my ancestors by getting back into the field, tapping back into natural and organic farming. I teach urban gardening. So people who live in the communities, or if they're in apartments, or if they're in the cities like myself, you can hear the streets and stuff going back and forth. I have my raspberry plants over here to my left, my echinacea growing, my spearmint, my sunflowers, some cilantro, strawberries, lemon balm, all at my porch, peppermint,
Okay.
garlic chives in front of me as well. I'll be having my winter squashes, my zucchinis and stuff getting sowed this season, and some more beans and things like that. And what I usually try to do is to try to go ahead and actually provide this so that way our people can have just a form of, I look at it as a form of healing. It's not necessarily a therapy session, but it is therapeutic. Going outside and getting your children out there. I know for myself, when I first went into the garden and ate my first strawberries, when I first picked my first strawberry from my own plant, there's a form of power in that, right? There's a form of power in going to your garden and grabbing food, right? There's a power in saying that I don't have to go to a grocery store and go get something, right? If I want to go eat raspberries or if I want to smell some peppermint, I can walk around my garden. And so our people need to be able to understand that that's a form of freedom. There was a form of dignity in it, and it's a form of righteousness.
Yeah.
So no different than I could just come to my raspberry tree and grab a raspberry and eat it. That's the type of freedom that I do on my personal life. So that's the type of freedom that I try to expound to my people and teaching them that. So I teach organic urban farming.
Bro,
Yes,
look, you need to have me at your house for dinner tonight. I don't care what nobody says. Sorry, Sabs. I'm going to ditch you. I'm going over to Khalif's house because we're going to eat. And look at me. I'm fluffy. You know I like to eat.
Brother,
I
look
want
at me.
strawberries
I'm,
now.
I'm 320 pounds.
too.
Bro. I'm a D lineman. I love eating. My great grandma called me Jaybe. I was a little fat boy, but then God gave me some height. But the true essence of it is this. I want to get back to that community that our ancestors had. There was so much stuff that we learned in looking at the Negro history, the American Negro history. And one of the things that really put on my spirit that was heavy was that when a new Negro man would come into the community, it didn't matter whether he was from the north, the south, the east, the west, but when he would come into the community with his wife, that community would build him a house from scratch. And if you're a member of that community, you have to provide the food and the clothing from the women's aspect. And this is what we see in movies, right? When you see the new family come in and they're bringing food and they're bringing clothing and they're saying, oh, welcome to our community. The Negro men would build the house, and if you couldn't build, you had to provide money. And if in most cases you had to do both. This is our history. This is what our people did. You might find that hard to believe with the generations you're dealing with now. But at one point, especially after slavery, this is what our people did. So my goal is to bring that version of community back, because that version of community back with a strong force and fierceness against anti-Negro thought and hate that would lead to a Tulsa is something that I want to protect. So I have to then, like Marcel said, if you can't find a candidate, then be that candidate. Well, if you can't find a community, you have to start beginning to build that community or see yourself as a member in that community. So me, even though I'm 320 pounds, 6'6", I probably wouldn't be the one going off to war. I would probably be the one stand back to help get the people who are going to war fed. And that was something that we even can see even in biblical days, because it was the duty of King David to feed his brothers, right? So it's the duty of the Negro people to feed our people. It is our duty. It's not just something we want to do or something we like to do, because in many cases, the things that's necessary is not always liked. But we must prepare ourselves to be put in that situation so that when the time does come, when there are 40 acres and a mule given out and I'm on my land, I can then say, great big mama, I did it. And I won't just be sitting there looking at the land, not knowing what to do then. Because when I did make it to the NFL, one of the hardest things for me, Brother Jaybe and Sister Sabs, was creating a goal when you've achieved your dreams. Because once you've achieved your dreams, you're stuck in this limbo state of, well, what's my goals now? Because I've already achieved those goals, and even more so, which is even bringing me to my dreams. But in that state, it was a stagnation. And I pray that I'll never lead my people towards a place of being in that, because I know what that's like. Also, where will you find me? You'll find me on Twitter at the Negro Farmer. You'll find me doing work with my brother, Jamin Mason. We call it the Negro Collective. And, we acknowledge and recognize our Freedmen family as Negro people, as our people. And we don't hold any discord or contention against them. We just recognize that when we go to court and we say we're descendants of a people, we don't want to ignore the fact that when they sold our people, we were Negroes. When they did convict leasing, the request for Negroes was more substantial, and the rate for a Negro body more than an African body was more. A Negro child that was 16 that had a blacksmithing trade would have been at $200 to $350 back then, whereas an Angolan or another type of African with the same trade and same skill level would have been sold for at least $100 to $150 less. So therefore, there was a quantitative measurement that the slaveholder acknowledged when buying a Negro. So no different than when I want my Rottweiler, I want a German Rottweiler, even if I get it from Nevada or Texas. It's still a German Rottweiler, even though it's not from Germany, because I get a certain bloodline, I get a trait, I get a characteristic. That's what they wanted from the American Negro people. So in understanding that my ancestors were sold with such qualities and principles being selling points, I don't want to devalue my people by trying to mislabel them or mischaracterize them as not being those people, because we are those people. And to recognize ourselves as such is not a badge of slavery as much as it is an identity of a people. And so we are the American Negro. I am an American Negro. My grandmother is an American Negro. My grandfather is an American Negro. My mother and my father are American Negroes. My people who are in me, who make up the composition of what you see, 6'6", 320, the farmer, football player, husband, father, neighbor, all of that is Negro. And that greatness that comes from me is that. So whether the OMB wants to remove Negro from Black American or African American, or whether Obama, who is a Kenyan American, wants to remove it from being acknowledged, you can never remove a lineage of people whose greatness is known throughout infinity. So that's why I exist as that greatness in present time today. And that's why I'm here talking to other beautiful, wonderful Negroes of the same cloth, because in the end, we are to worship under our own vine and fig tree. And there's no house like a Negro house, baby. So I thank you guys for having me on the stage. And I appreciate all of the beautiful and lovely work that you do, Brother Jaybe. Sister Sabs, it's my pleasure to finally come and actually chop it up with you. My brother Jamin Mason, we chop it up all the time. My brother's literally right next door to me. I'm up in Vancouver, Canada still, because I played football up in the north. But my brother Jamin's like literally a 3-hour drive for me in Washington. And I'm making plans in this year, before the year's over, that we go chop it up, see each other, and just have a wonderful Negro time, man. Have a grand old time. And I think that will please our ancestors more than anything. So that's what I'm into doing. That's what I love doing. I love taking my daughter to school every morning. I love being a husband. I love being a father. And I love being a wonderful member of the Negro community that is to come, and not necessarily of the communities many Negroes are in today.
Khalif, real quick, Khalif, what team did you play for?
I played for the San Francisco 49ers under Coach Michael Singletary for 2 years. And then I went to Canada up for the BC Lions, and we won a championship under the BC Lions. And then I went to the Toronto Argonauts for 1 year, and then they brought me back to BC for the BC Lions again. So from San Francisco to Vancouver to Toronto, back to Vancouver, and that's where the Most High got me now. So those are the teams I played for, and I didn't graduate yet because I left university early, but I went to Chapel Hill, and then I went to East Carolina from high school. And I went to high school in Virginia Beach.
Okay.
Yep. So I'm a Tar
remember,
Heel, I'm a pirate, I'm all of that.
Yeah, I remember Mike Singletary. Okay. I was just curious.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, that was my coach, a wonderful man and a wonderful man of God as well. And because I was a stubborn brute, coming from being a Virginia boy, mama raised, I had some stubbornness about me that Coach Singletary had to. I think he was the only man I was humble enough to submit myself to be broken by, if that makes sense, because every Ronin loves their master, right? So Mike Singletary is an amazing master. He's the reason it's called Mike Lion.
Oh no!
The way he taught me was to say, well, I know need because I know what Fridge Perry needed. So therefore, the type of player that I was to become was the type of player that he would want to play behind. And so that's why I look at him as that master or that leader, even today. And Coach Singletary and his wife and family are wonderful, wonderful friends and people of mine as well. And I'm just glad to be back with my people. I didn't want to be in a glitz and a football player life in the glamour Hollywood. I just love being on the porch. And sitting outside and actually doing like I just showed y'all, and now I'm able to come outside and rub my hand on my peppermints when I have a long day and decompress before I walk in the house. I'm able to go in the house, even if I can't find, my money and everything is fine. But say if I wasn't able to go outside and find a job, I could come home with some groceries in my hand from my garden. It's a benefit when I get to tell my daughters, hey, let's go pick out a handful or a basket full of strawberries, raspberries, and when the time comes, eat a zucchini straight off. You know, that to me is riches. It might not necessarily be something to everyone else, but to me, from what our people have been through, that was the only source of peace we had in a slave on a plantation in the Negro quarters. It was our garden. So our garden was a source of our peace to be free at. So I think this is why the ancestors had nestled me into this being of a person in my 39 years of life to actually be doing this and to take it forward. So that way, when I come to the community, you don't just see me as the big guy who can teach your son how to play football, if you catch my drift, right?
Yeah. Just one point I wanted to make to you, Khalif, when you were talking about the building of houses within our community. That also was done by indigenous communities, both here in Turtle Island as well as in Africa. And that's called a gift economy. And that's what we used to do. It was basically, I got you next type of economy. So if I moved into a neighborhood, you help build my house, then whatever I can do, I got you next. And that's basically how.
James, yes. No, brother James, I'm sorry, I didn't even mention that. And I'm thankful I got the chills on my neck from when you said that. That is true. The only debt you owed was to help build the next house for the next man.
Yeah.
So your debt was indebted to your brother. You were indebted to your neighborhood. You were indebted to your community. So imagine a community we don't lock doors in, because literally everybody around here either knows each other, either birthed the child, or we literally help build the house you're in. I mean, that type of power is not even reciprocated in today's time with other communities. And I do believe that it is something that is indicative of our experience from the native indigenous people from Turtle Island, plus those taken and trafficked through the transatlantic slave trade, to us being here today. Yeah, we embody all of that. And that does explain why we carried those traditions. My goal is to just relive those traditions, because I honestly feel there is nothing greater than doing that type of service. Because even Christ acknowledged that the greatest gift is not necessarily to be called king, but to be called servant of your own brother. And that's why he washed his disciples' feet. Not that he was necessarily beneath them, but that the way he can show his love for them was to serve them. And I think that so many times we've adopted the colonizers' mindset of selfishness, that we've seemed to have lost that mindset of cohesiveness with each other. And I think that truly is the crux of our experience. And once we fix that, I believe everything else will come. And we don't need to wait for a signing of a signature from the government to get that done. And so that's what I firmly believe as well. And I think through things like we're doing now with Sister Sabs, with you, Brother James, with Brother Dat Negro, Brother Ali Bey, Brother Marcel Dixon, I believe that collectively, whether we all agree or don't agree, whether we all like or don't like, whether they're all men or all women or sometimes mixed, that will be collectively good for my children and your children and our collective people coming after us. Because I do believe that before we become elders, we need to set our people up in a position to be proper elders, the ones that the youngins sit down at the campfire with in Indian style, whether you were a Negro, Indian from a tribe or not, to listen to the wisdom. And so many times we can't even get that because we've been busybodies and always having to go here and there. Mom's busy. Mom come home from work as a young, and I had to prep food, do laundry. Well, there have to be a generation where the elders rest just to pass that wisdom down. And that generation won't come until we create it. So, but yeah, Brother James, thank you for that wisdom. And that right there is just like Aaron and Moses, right? Moses couldn't do it by himself. Neither could Aaron. Christ even had 12 disciples. If you even look at Noah and the ark, he needed his sons and he needed his grandfather and his father. All these times when we look at the powerful, most powerful chosen men of God, he never just selected them by themselves. Even King David was a servant to his brothers before he became the great David. He was just known as the cattle boy David. They even looked at him and said, "What are you even doing here? You trying to outshine us?" And he's like, "No, Mama and them told me to bring you some food. But who's this person uttering blasphemies? We need to deal with him." And it would take a young, courageous farmer David to outdo all of the soldiers, because even sometimes in this battle, even our best soldiers are not even the ones for the duty. It might be the one that's just counted off, might be the servant that might be the most victorious warrior among us. And that's why we always must stay humble and not full of pride, but prideful in the fact that our people are the solution for our problems.
Thank you. And Jamin, so what do you have coming up and where can we find you?
I'm trying to figure out this this MacBook. I'm trying to switch and get off, go from Windows to MacBook. It's crazy. But slowly but surely I'm getting it. So first and foremost, before I even say anything else, I want to thank our ancestors for making this happen. Because that's with all of us. Marcel, Ali, Brother Irie, Jaybe, Sabby Sabs. I can't believe I'm sitting on a space with you. That's crazy. The ancestors made this happen. They made this go wherever it goes from here. It made the truth spread far and wide. And I believe Freedmen and Negro, both of those are very valid in that conversation. So I wanted to say that first. Second of all, I promised everyone on Twitter, so I got to make this right. I'm going to give the exact solution for getting reparations without the Democrats, without the Republicans. This was from a childhood experience that I had. I definitely didn't live my whole life like this, but I definitely started my young life in the hood, right here in Bremerton, Washington, 360. I'm going to give the shout out to the whole thing, Acacia Block Compton Crip, just to say that. This is what I'm saying. I'm going to call all of the ones I know and respect out by name. And man, this means a lot, y'all. Big Smoke, the only one to this day that I love like a brother. Thank you for everything you've taught me, everything you've done. I appreciate you. Little Deuce, Boomer, Rhino, Little Rhino, JP, Dice, Barry, Dangerous, Clint, Little Yellow Jacket, RIP, Acacia Jack, Baby Deuce, Tiny Deuce, Debo, BL Ryder, and Little Rhino. I already said that. I am putting a bona fide promise out there. If y'all step to this literature that we have written, I've given to Congress, I promise you, we will make these streets do what our people need right there in Bremerton, Washington, wherever that's needed. I promise you that. We just need out of y'all that warrior class that I know for a fact. Remember, I was there. I didn't make the cut, and I'm not trying. I never went back to the hood. Why? Because I knew this MS was coming. I knew what was happening, and I knew I couldn't stick to the bar that y'all held and always did. I knew I wasn't cut. But Smoke told me one thing years ago, and not all of us were made to be killers. And I believe my purpose was to be on this show tonight and do what I just did in hopes that people emulate this across the country, wherever. I don't got pulled with the Acacia Block Crip. I forgot, representing Compton, for real, the real thing. Got to say that too. I'm not doing that for recognition. I know I didn't make the cut, but I also know y'all are the real thing. I saw it, I lived it for the time that I was there, and I know we could change this world. And as soon as people start emulating what we do here across the country, we'll get reparations in a month's time. I guarantee you that. We get that warrior class to start working in cahoots with the ancestors like I'm doing. I'm getting goosebumps, y'all. Literally, we will change the world, not through legislations, not through a pen, through Special Field Orders 15 and the power of the American Negro Collective. Period, point blank. So I wanted to say that. You can find me. I got a loud voice. Thank you to the ancestors for that. On Twitter, Dat Negro Jamin is my name. At Jamin under whatever that underscore oh crap, Jamin underscore W is what it is. That's my thing. Please check out the resolution that Comrade Jaybe shared earlier. That's www.americanunionreparations.com. And the petition that goes with that is, oh my goodness, I'm drawing a blank. It's the change.org. I will make sure I didn't share it, but please sign it. It is the only change.org reparations that really calls for real repair. And that was the Negro Collective's making. Please check that out. And please support your local people from the Banff community, y'all. We have to support each other. I don't care where your ideology is. If we don't, unity is the thing that this government, us and unity, that is what they're afraid of. And if we display that, it's over, y'all. No one can display anything like we have, and we've proven in the civil rights, Negro baseball, where they had to take it and make it MLB. Man, if we would have stayed where the hell we was at, man, we just have to do us. And that's coming from a mulatto. I gotta say this, y'all. I gotta say this. I do not recommend making mulattoes. I really don't. Coming from a born and raised mulatto, I believe we should do what Khalif said. We should build on our own. Don't have people confused. I took our side. I took that American Negro colored on my dad's birth certificate. I took that side. That's who I relate with and always have. But those people that don't, however that goes, please get into your community and get those people moving for us. So again, American Union Reparations is this one. Change.org, I forgot what it is. I wish I would have put it in there. Oh, it's attached to that, the resolution. If you just showed it, Jaybe. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, it's in there. Thank you so much for everything. Again, Sabby Sabs, again, I can't believe I'm in here with you, and thank you for this mandatory mission. Please listen to my words, y'all. We can really do this, and I'll land right there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so very much. Sorry, go ahead, Sabs.
I was just saying thanks.
Thank you so very much to Khalif and Jamin. So good to have you guys. And thank you so very much for joining us. It was a privilege.
Yeah, the privilege was all mine. Peace and blessings to you, beautiful brother James, and wonderful, wonderful Negress, Sister Sabs. It's my honor to be over here with you guys today. And through the wind and the way the willow tree is blowing behind me, the ancestors are very happy. So that's what I live for. I am my great grandma. I am her Pooh Bear. I am my great grandpa. I am his son. And the way that I was able to even be created was in the likeness through their image. So I pray today that whenever I left them, whatever words I said made them more proud than it would have not to be. So that way, because to be honest, I feel like if I act up on earth, I feel like my big mama still got a switch in heaven for me. So I ain't trying to get them licks. I'm trying to make sure I stay on code and stay with the lineage. So it is definitely in all my doing to make sure that I move a certain way when it comes to the House of Negro and move in a way that's becoming of those who were prior to me and not unbecoming. Because one thing I know is two things for sure. We all better start acting like those houses where they don't ask you, who raised you? What house you was raised in? Where your parents at? Because those type of children recognize that there's an expectation for their behavior. So I love the way you host, Brother James. You host magnificent. How you doing, brother? Good seeing you. I love how Sister Sabs co-host. She was magnificent as well. And this was just a beautiful premiere with a lot of beautiful voices on it as well. So thank you. It has been my humble privilege to be in participation with you guys, and it has been my honor to be spending my time in this day with you as well.
All right. Thank you so very much. Take care, guys. Have a good night.
Bye.
All right. So that was Sabs, what is your reflection upon that conversation? What do you think overall?
I think that was a much needed conversation, and I think, and hopefully people, I'm sorry we couldn't get to, I know there's a lot of starred questions, and I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of them because there are a lot of questions here, but hopefully this panel did help answer some of the questions that you had about reparations. And that was kind of the goal for, that me and Jaybe had, because we were getting a lot of questions about it and stuff. And especially more so the money question that a lot of people ask all the time, like, how would this work and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully you did get those things answered for you.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm walking away from this, because there are some, I may have some disagreements with everybody that's on the panel in different ways, but the one thing that we all agree on is that reparations is really a debt that is owed. How we go about it, that may be some disagreement here and there, but I honestly do think that it has to be done, whether people try to do it through this system. I'm personally of the opinion that this system needs to be torn apart and rebuilt anew, and we can get our reparations. But either way, we need to keep fighting for it, whether we're in this system or in a new socio-political system. Either way, I think it needs to happen. So
I agree. I do have to head out, Jaybe.
Okay, and I'll take care of all the super chats and stuff.
Okay, I was about to tell you, there's a bunch of starred comments, but yeah, I thought this panel was great. I thought it was great, and hopefully people learned a lot. So,
yeah,
bye,
definitely.
Jaybe.
All right, take care, Sab. You have yourself a great night.
Bye, you too.
All right, everybody. So let's get to the comments in the chat. I want to make sure I get to these because these are also very important. People are asking a lot of important questions. Thank you so much for sticking around for this portion. We're going to be going into these and answering a little bit some questions, and if I can answer them, then also I will be happy to do so as well. So thank you so very much for the tip on Rockfin. Roger, he says tax-free direct payments of $2,500 a week for the next 250 years, adjusted for inflation, grants to start our own businesses, tax subsidies to start American freedmen businesses, both traditional and worker-owned cooperatives, with no federal tax on them until they reach Amazon, Walmart level. Land back with tools and resources to develop that land, reinstatement of the Freedmen Savings and Trust Bank. Just to add, so we literally had the Homestead Act where a lot of white people were actually given land and the tools and taught how to cultivate that land when they moved out west. So the thing is like, if that could be done for them, that could be done for us as well. And a lot of times people will say, for instance, well, where will we get the money? As Khalif Mitchell was explaining, that was actually through Special Field Order number 15. That was done through the Department of War at the time, which is now the Department of Defense. And somebody put in a comment that I thought that was really interesting. One of the things is, hang on, let me see. Here it is. Stephanie says, we pay for the military department, rather see my money go to reparations than wars. Basically meaning, if we can give all this money to Israel, if we can give all this money to Ukraine, then we can actually take that money, circumvent it, and reinvest it into the American freedmen. I'd rather our money go into building us up or building American freedmen up rather than bombing brown children abroad, right? Because the thing is like, ultimately, even if you're not a descendant of slaves in this country, you will indirectly benefit from it anyway. So it's still going to be an economic stimulus anyway. And even still, I shouldn't have to explain it that way because it's just the right thing to do. But even just from a personal benefit, because a lot of people need to feel like, oh, well, how am I going to benefit? How is this going to benefit me? Even still, you indirectly benefit. So just wanted to put that out there as well. So thank you very much. And there was a few points that were made. I'll just go over really quickly due to the sake of time. Dave Burt says the crimes were intense and bloody as hell and ongoing. Generational trauma will be the catchphrase underestimate and language on the horrors. Though useful in some words, people say it now this year, maybe. Dave Burt, just to add to your point, If you have not, and anybody who is within the sound of my voice, if you go on Twitter and you type in post-traumatic slave syndrome, there was a talk by Dr. Joy DeGruy, who actually talked about the passing down of the trauma from slavery on down throughout our generations. So that was a lecture by Dr. Joy DeGruy called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, and I encourage everybody to watch it. It's about 90 minutes or so, but it's a deep, in-depth, nuanced lecture on how our trauma has been passed down from chattel slavery. And I encourage people, and she even gets into the science of it, how it could actually be imprinted into mitochondrial DNA and then imprinted into us. So therefore, if it took that long to get into our DNA over time, it's going to take a while for us to get it out. Therefore, one of the ways to help that along would also be to repair the damage done. Repair is the root word in reparations. So I just wanted to put that out there. So thank you so very much for that, Dave Burt. Also, just to continue on just a little bit. Dave Burt says, I would say war reparations for slavery, murders, lynching, psychological abuse, sexual assault, apartheid, Jim Crow, living for centuries, payment for past murderous attacks on ancestors to extreme levels. So basically, yes. Thank you so very much for all of that, Dave Burt. Now, let's go to the general chat. There was a lot that you guys had to say. So I'm going to start off with Nick RBN Comrade says, banger after banger. Absolutely. I agree. Thank you so very much. And you're such a sweet guy, Nick, saying me and Sabby are too powerful. Look, it takes one to know one, Nick. Love you, bro. I love you and your fade. Sonny Robinson says, salute to ADOS FBA. My bloodline been here 20 generations. The Boston Massacre was started and led by the FBA, which to the Boston Tea Party. Thank you very much for that, Sonny Robinson. Cooper says, how does reparations achieve a broad systemic change needed rather than simply incremental specific change, ultimately supporting the status quo? The thing is it's not going to ultimately change the system of capitalism, but it's still necessary. See what I mean? That's like somebody doing something wrong to me and then me suing the person for damages. You could say, well, capitalism's still going to be in place. Why even bother suing? Because number one, it's the right thing to do. Number two, I at least got to try. You know what I mean? So that's what I would say. Because ultimately, really, it is collecting for damages done to the people. That is what reparations basically is. So I'm not using reparations as a tool to be able to change the system. I ultimately think beyond reparations, this system needs to be torn apart and rebuilt anew because capitalism has not served us. Capitalism is the reason why we are owed reparations in the first place. Remember, look, I'm a commie, okay? I'm a commie that supports reparations. So therefore, yes, we need reparations, but also this system that caused us to be enslaved in the first place, it needs to be ended as well. Of course, some of the panelists may disagree with me, and that's okay. But I ultimately think reparations, as well as breaking down and ending this capitalist system on top of it too. So yes, thank you so very much for that, Cooper. Thank you so very much to Christian for becoming a YouTube member, RBN member. Clap it up for Christian. Thank you so very much. Much appreciated. Sonny also says, well, give my Black Americans all the payments from all of our inventions that were stolen from the cell phones, etc. on back, including the video game cartridge. Yes, we should deserve money from that. We deserve money from the portable air conditioning system, from the traffic light, so many things. Hell, give us money for peanut butter. There's so many different things that we deserve money from that we never really got. Jack Daniels, anybody? Come on now. Rock music. Let's go. We got to talk about it. Eric Gray says substantive reparations will require revolutionary action, and whiteness as a social contract must be abolished. Agreed. Thank you very much for that. Notori says facts. Every time Black people try to get ahead and pull up our bootstraps, the government still and destroy. Let's not forget with Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Fred Hampton, Black Wall Street. Absolutely, because every single time we got ahead, we got pushed back. It was also in places like the Ocoee Massacre, right? I'm in Orlando, Florida. Ocoee is slightly north of, still in Orange County. The Ocoee Massacre that happened here. Of course, a lot of people don't talk about that. A lot of people don't talk about what happened in Rosewood here in Florida too. Ellen, this is the question I wanted to answer. What does Jim Crow mean? I keep hearing it, never heard exactly what it meant or means. So Jim Crow was a set of laws that was basically what you know of as apartheid in South Africa or what's going on in occupied Palestine. Jim Crow was apartheid in America. So it was a set of laws for Black people that put us as second-class citizens versus the white people in this country. So we had separate bathrooms, separate water fountains, separate places to eat. There was places where we could not go, and the places that were set apart for us were always of lower quality. Schools were segregated. You had wings of hospitals that were segregated. Everything was set apart. They had segregated where they buried our dead, cemeteries. Segregated cemeteries, meaning we could not even be buried dead along with white people. So even in death, we were separated. So Jim Crow laws, and I encourage you to Google what Jim Crow laws are. I'm giving you just a very, very overly simplistic sliver. So Google Jim Crow laws and Google Black codes as well. And that will give you more of a detailed analysis of what it is. And Jim Crow is also kept us and held us back from actually being able to realize what we should have had in this country. But thank you very much for that question, Ellen. Christian says, coming from the proud summit in Afro-Colombian, my Black American brothers and sisters are the original architects of the USA. Cut those reparations checks. And yes, I want to say this to people who are Black but not American descendants of slaves. Reparations would be lineage based. It is not race based, it is lineage based. Meaning, if I can go into Ancestry.com and I can go back to my 5th great grandfather that was born in 1792 in Essex County, Virginia, if I can go back and get all those records and find out that I am an American descendant of slaves, the United States government can do all that themselves too. Meaning that people like myself, including there's some people who are white passing who would also get reparations because they are literally American descendants of slaves. Some people that may even look white, who may even qualify. So that's why it's not race-based, it's lineage-based. This is why there's some people who they may have a father or mother, or a grandfather or grandmother that came from St. Thomas. They may have came from Nigeria, or they may have come from South Africa that would not be eligible because they're not descendants of American descendants of slaves, of freedmen. But needless to say, do I believe that they still deserve reparations? Yes. If you are Haitian, do you deserve reparations? Hell yeah. If you are Brazilian, do you deserve reparations? Hell yeah. The thing is that you deserve reparations from the countries, the respective countries that have actually enslaved your ancestors. So if you're Brazilian, if you're Afro-Brazilian, then you need to get that from Portugal. If you are Haitian, you need to get that from France, right? If you're from different countries in Africa, depending on the country you're from, it could be from Italy, it could be from Spain, it could be from France, it could be from England, what have you. So therefore, we do largely stand in solidarity with you to get your reparations. But this is for the American descendants of slaves. So just to let you guys know, it's a lineage-based program. Let me see. Sonny asks, what about Black Americans who were here before United States became America? I would also argue that we also not only should get reparations from the United States government because it was promised to us through Special Field Order number 15, but after that, we need to demand reparations from Britain. It's fair because Britain owes a lot of reparations to a lot of people. Britain really owes reparations to the world. So, yeah. Stunny says, before America became a country, Europeans were given 1,000 acres of free land to build on, not Black slaves. That's how the 40 acres derived from FBA talk. Thank you so very much for that, Sonny. Sonny also says, the real reason they destroyed Black Wall Street was because of the oil wells that Black Americans owned. That was worth billions. Yeah. There was a lot of, every single time, it's always about resources. Always follow the money back. Bobby Ishak says, how would you decide what is suitable amount of reparations for each person? How far would you go back? Would you say that people should get reparations for the genocides like Black on Black, Brown on Brown? So let's take this apart. How would you decide what's a suitable amount for reparations for each person? Well, the American descendants of slaves, we need to come together and reconvene. You know, how do we divide it? That's what we need to discuss among ourselves. How far would you go back? Well, as far back until, for us, for the United States, it would be 1776. And then if you want to go beyond that, then yeah, we can go back further into with the 13 original colonies. Well, then we also need to demand that back from England. Yeah. And then we would calculate that too. You see, would you say people should get reparations for other genocides like Black on Black, Brown on Brown? What are you talking about? Genocides, Black on Black? I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to. Please be specific. Sonny says, Africa richest man, Aliko Dangote family is rooted in selling the first slaves to America, the Husas. Thank you very much for that. Janice Anderson says, getting some great arguments to utilize and convo with my white neighbors and coworkers. Thanks for this. Thank you very much. Also, this is also great point, Janice, because if you are white and if you are not a descendant of slaves, this is a great go-to to show people who have reservations. Like, honestly, if they're not a descendant of slave and if they have reservations, it doesn't even matter, you know, because ultimately it's what's right. Because it's just like if you're suing somebody for damages, it doesn't matter if they like it or not, right? The damages need to be paid. But if you want to turn them, you know, or not turn them, but if you want to give great arguments for why, and it's basically logical arguments, then yeah, show them the stream. Sonny says the Black Holocaust alone is grounds for 150 million slaves died on the slave ship coming over to the Americas. Also, that is, yes, that is reparations that is owed to, because there are many of lost family members. That's wrongful death, right? Roger Meadows says, don't sit on the couch. If you don't like who's on the ballot, then vote for what's on the ballot. Vote them ballot initiatives and leave the politicians and judges blank. Yes. In fact, here in Florida, we will be voting on the legalization of recreational marijuana here in November. If you guys want to vote for that, then you have that. You guys do not have to vote for a politician. There are ballot initiatives that either you can start or ones that somebody else has started, which you can circumvent politicians. You don't have to vote for a politician, but make sure to pay attention to those ballot initiatives because those are important. DC says $82 trillion divided by 330 million is 248,484,000. I'm sorry, $248,484.84 cost per person to fund such a program. Economically unfeasible. It's actually economically feasible. It just has to be done over time. The problem is that if we can fund to the tune of over almost $1 trillion for our defense budget every single year, then we can actually fund reparations. And we can also stop giving subsidies to the fossil fuel industry as well as big pharma and to these big corporations. We can actually give reparations to the American descendants of slaves. It is actually feasible. Thank you very much for your comment. Justin B says, why not work with the party that has the goal to... Oh, we already addressed this. Thank you so very much for that. Stephanie says, we pay for the military department, rather see the money go to reparations than wars. I already went over that. With our eyes rise, says, Black force the War Department to play for reparations, checkmate. Thank you so very much. Zombie in the Air says, it was great, but I feel like a lot of people that needed to hear it didn't show up. This is not a sexy topic. And this is a topic that some people are just not going to want to hear. There's a reason why there really is only 127 people watching on YouTube right now. The reason being is because you have some people who also watch this channel who don't really want to hear about reparations, even though they're watching an all-black channel where every single member of this channel supports reparations. Yes, me, Sabby, Nick, and Rome, we all support reparations. Yet, it's not the sexiest topic. Why? Because some people feel like, well, it has nothing to do with me. Actually, it does. Because if you're white, you benefit from the inequality in this nation because, yes, white privilege does exist. I don't care who says, oh, it doesn't exist. And it's not because your life is more privileged in that way where you're doing better than everybody. It means that your life is not made harder by the color of your skin. So, yes. So ultimately, you got to realize that you still benefit from this system the way it is, the way it's set up. Thank you so very much. Just hit the like button to elevate in the algorithm of the night. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for Greatly Blessed. Says Greatly Blessed is now a RBN channel member. Thank you so much. Clap it up for Greatly Blessed. Thank you so very much. Victor Devan says there was a reason usury is frowned upon by most religions. Yes, that's actually in response to talking about the gift economy. I think that's really important that we talk about usury. Really should be, in my opinion, should be outlawed. I don't think that we should have usury, which is basically charging people interest. I don't think we should have a system like that because it really just puts people under. Unemployed Scholar says, not to mention forced breeding of enslaved Africans in the U.S. in order to create next generation of slaves. Yes, there were literally men that they were forced to breed with female slaves in order to have children. Now, some of y'all might disagree with me on this, but it is what it is, whatever. Some of our ancestors were also LGBTQ, and they were probably forced in order to breed just so that they can create new slaves. So they were probably forced to be with somebody of the same gender who they weren't attracted to, or even if they were hetero, they were forced to be with somebody who that they weren't in love with, that they did not want to be with, in order to get impregnated by them, or to impregnate them in order to have a future flock of slaves. Can you imagine that? So yes, there were forced breedings too. So, and I didn't get into the real gory details, but this is some of the things that have also transpired as well. Not to mention the sexual assault of female and male slaves by female and male enslavers. So that also happened too. So we gotta, we're gonna talk about it. We gotta talk about it. You know what I'm saying? I gotta be very careful on the tube, but yes. So that's one thing we have to talk about. All right. DC says you don't have to convince white people to agree to a program for it to be enacted, considering the demographic is still one of the largest and still holds the large amount of political power. I mean, yeah, we don't, just because, it's the right thing to do doesn't mean we don't have to convince them, but it's still the right thing to do. Thank you very much. Adventurous Guide to the Galaxy says, are y'all doing any Orlando events again soon? I was busy the last time y'all came here. Yes, we'll be meeting with the Orlando chapter here of RBN to talk about our next event now that I'm moved. One of the things that we'll be doing is going to be doing for the unhoused in the Orlando area. So once we agree to when we'll be doing it, and once we get out there on the streets, I will make sure to also put it in the community notes on YouTube, as well as on our Facebook and Twitter page on RBN, so that you are aware. And I'll try to do it through the Substack as well. But if you guys would like to join us here in Orlando to do community action, you guys also will be made aware of that. I'll try to do it at least 2 weeks in advance before we actually do it, so that everybody has a chance in the Central Florida area to come out and help us build up our community through direct action. So just keep an eye on the YouTube channel and all the other social medias for RBN. Great Teen says Haiti deserves reparations from France as well. Instead, Haiti is paying reparations to France. Like, what the F? Yeah, that's crazy. And then on top of that, enslavers got paid reparations from the United States government, even though they lost our ancestors in the Civil War. Crazy, right? Sakudo says, I'm pretty sure RBN strat includes feeding some of the most painful topics and info through Jaybe because of his delivery and personality and the whole vibe. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. All right. So Sakudo says, please answer this important question. Why are you so sweet and based and easy to listen? Thank you very much, Sakudo. I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I just make sure that I didn't skip over any. I just want to make sure I didn't skip over any super chats, because I want to make sure that I get to it before I head on out. And yeah, I think we're good. Okay. Sakuda, I just read what you said. I can't really read it, but once in a while. But I'm trying to get on the kidney transplant list, so may have to just for a little bit, but just letting you know. But yes, thank you so very much. I'm trying to let me check and see if there's any. Let me see. Okay, I'm just looking to see if there's any Rumble rants at all. Okay, so all right, looking at here, I don't see any Rumble rants. Thank you so much to everybody for watching on Rumble. Okay, so Leprechaun Alley says, JB, we received the coffee mug with your beautiful face on it in the mail, and my husband, who is on dialysis, uses it. Oh, okay. Thank you so very much. Okay, so you're on my channel. Thank you so very much. Yeah. So also please give a special shout out to your husband. As a fellow dialysis patient, I know exactly what it's like. If he had dialysis today or he has dialysis tomorrow, I wish him a very speedy and easy recovery after treatment. So thank you very much for that. All right, so I got to get going because, look, a brother is hungry, and it's been a long day. But I just want to say on my channel, if you guys would like to, that's linked in the description below. On my channel, I'll be going over the reading. I'll try to go over this Saturday, this weekend, the reading of Bell Hooks, The Will to Change. So if you guys would like to, you guys can read that. Also, I'll be reading Prejudicial by Margaret Kimberly as well. I read that on my channel. I read these books and discuss them. And then Of Water in the Spirit by Melodoma Patrice Somé. So I'll be doing the readings of those on my channel if you guys would like to listen to those readings as well as hear the discussion of those readings as well. This Saturday on my channel, I'll be having on Marcus Cage from the Political Matrix at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on my channel. So if you guys would like to see go to my channel, you guys can go in the description below. Also, I'll be talking to Andre Stackhouse from Hull, Washington. He's going to be running for office on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern on my channel. So be sure to tune in. This Sunday on RBN on the Jaybe show, I will be talking to Rathbone from TikTok. So I'll be having a discussion with him. That's going to be a great discussion to be had. I have a very busy weekend coming up, so it's going to be interesting. So I cannot wait to have that discussion as well and to get his perspective on some things. So with that being said, I would like to end this stream. Thank you so very much to everybody for tuning in. I want to thank Brother Ali, Jamin Mason, Khalif Mitchell, and Gregg Marcel Dixon for coming on. Thank you so much to my sister, Sabby. If you guys have not, Sabby actually went live at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on her channel earlier today to talk to Scott Ritter. If you would like to, just go and go to her channel and give that a watch. That was a really great conversation, especially about what's going on with Israel in regards to their extermination of Palestinians. So I would like to put that out there to you guys if you guys have not watched that already. So thank you very much to everybody for tuning in, all y'all. And I'm going to end with this video so that we can head on out. Let me see. Let me make sure I got it. Yep. Okay. So look, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Smoking if you got them, drinking if you got them. If you ain't got them, then read, because reading is fundamental, or watch something funny because joy is revolutionary. I love you all for watching, and you guys have yourself a wonderful day. Mwah! Forehead kisses to every single one of you. We're going to close out with a poignant poignant video. And you guys take care. Have yourself a wonderful day.
I don't ever want to hear the argument that Black people don't deserve reparations because we today weren't alive during slavery. One, because reparations are not just about slavery, and if you knew anything about reparations, you would know that. Two, because these two survivors of the Tulsa massacre are still alive and were denied their reparations by the state of Oklahoma. Miss Leslie Benningfield Randall, Miss Viola Fletcher, and Mr. Hughes Van Ellis began this suit in 2020 with hopes of seeing justice in their lifetime. Hughes Van Ellis died last year at the age of 102. About 300 Black people were murdered in Tulsa, Oklahoma that day by a white mob, many of them police. Their homes and businesses were robbed and burned to the ground. Those Black people who did survive, who were able to get away, were made refugees in their own country and thrown in concentration camps policed by the National Guard. The terrorists who did this were not adjudicated against. The Black victims, the survivors, their descendants were not given $1 of restitution or reparations or a bit of justice. The argument against reparations, that no one who was alive at the time should get them, supports an idea that if we were alive at the time, we should get them. And yet when we were alive in 1865, in 1965, in 2024, that remains untrue. I don't ever want to hear the argument that